Chapter 703. Golden Striped Blood Yang Pill, 6th Turn Sword Will Pill, and 6th Turn Mystery Pill. After going through more than half of the books, Chu Mu and Qin Shanhe finally found the names of the 3 pills and learned their effects. The effects of the 6th Turn Mystery Pill and the 6th Turn Sword Will Pill were the same. The only difference was that one helped in refining the mystery, while the other helped in refining the sword will. The 6th Turn Sword Will Pill and 6th Turn Mystery Pill were not only useful to Qin Shanhe, but also to Chu Mu. However, Chu Mu had not created the 6th handprint of the 9-turn Heavenly Shocking Seal, so he could not use them yet. Therefore, Chu Mu took out 10 6th Turn Sword Will Pill and 10 6th Turn Mystery Pill and gave them to Qin Shanhe. He asked Qin Shanhe to go back and cultivate in seclusion. Qin Shanhe could fully use the power of the pills to refine the sword will and mystery with the 9-turn True Yang Seal. After Qin Shanhe left, Chu Mu continued to stay in the library and read the rest of the book. He planned to use his powerful soul and memory to memorize the contents of more than 10,000 books in his mind. He wanted to master the knowledge of all kinds of pills. In this way, he would be able to identify pills easily when he came across them in the future. Another day and night passed, and Chu Mu finally finished reading the rest of the pill book. The contents of the 10,000 pill books were completely imprinted in his mind, as if they were deeply imprinted in his mind. After reading, Chu Mu felt dizzy. It was as if there was a stone in his head. It was swollen and obscure, as if it was going to burst. He had a splitting headache. Rubbing his temples to relieve the pressure in his head, Chu Mu didn't mind. He knew that the reason for this situation was because he had been reading and memorizing the contents of the pill records day and night. There were over 10,000 pill records, and every one of them was a large volume. How much content was there in there? Imagine continuously stuffing a large amount of knowledge into one's brain. Moreover, there was so much of it without any time to rest. It would be strange if one didn't feel tired and dizzy. Fortunately, Chu Mu's soul strength was extremely powerful. If it were Qin Shanhe, he probably wouldn't even be able to finish a fifth of it. After leaving the book collection pavilion and returning to the sword tower, Chu Mu laid on the bed and planned to have a good sleep. As long as he slept and woke up, the swelling feeling in his head would disappear. The next day, Chu Mu felt refreshed. There are 10 Golden Vein Blood Yang Pills, 96th Revolution Sword Intent Pills, and 96th Revolution Profound Pill. Chu Mu took out 3 pill gourds. Each of them had a different color and corresponded with the color of the pills, making them easy to identify. These 3 types of pills were all extremely precious. If word got out, Chu Mu would become the focus of attention. He was a delicacy in everyone's eyes. Who knew how many people would reach out to him and use all sorts of methods to snatch him away? Although the Golden Vein Blood Yang pills were precious, not everyone needed to replenish their essence blood. Therefore, the probability of using them was relatively small. The 6th Revolution Sword Intent Pills and 6th Revolution Profound Pill were incredible. Among the elite disciples of the Sky Edge Sword Palace, the highest level of sword intent and profound was only at the 6th Revolution. In other words, if a battle team obtained the 6th Revolution Sword Intent Pills and 6th Revolution Profound Pill and used them appropriately, they could nurture some experts. These pills could only be known to Chu Mu and Qin Shanhe. They would definitely not be leaked, because these 2 types of pills would strengthen the strength of Chu Mu and Qin Shanhe. It would even be a great boost to the strength of Zhen Tian's battle team. After thinking about how to make the best use of these pills, Chu Mu went downstairs to practice his sword arts, control of power, and so on. He then practiced the Burning Blood transformation and studied the 6th hand seal of the 9 Revolution Heavenly Shocking Seal. I now have 410 battle points. I can stay in the inner pocket of the 1000 Evil Valley for 41 days. However, even if I stay for 41 days, my sword intent and profound won't reach the 3rd revolution. Chu Mu thought. The further one progressed, the harder it was to refine the sword intent and profound. It would take more time. According to his estimation, even if he created the sixth hand seal of the 9 revolution heavenly shocking seal, it would take at least 4 months to refine the sword intent to the 6th revolution. If he included the profound, it would take at least 8 months. If he entered the 1000 evil valley and refined it 5 times more efficiently, it would still take more than a month. The problem was that the 6th hand seal was not completed yet. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind. My spiritual consciousness has already filled the spiritual world. I can cultivate the second part of the Southern Dipper mind refining scripture. As long as I condense the second mind star, although the strength will not increase, the quantity will double. It will be a great improvement in all aspects. Among the elite disciples, there was a sacred place for cultivation called the stargazing platform. Its function was to let people feel the power of the stars more clearly. In most cases, the stargazing platform was used for a small number of swordsmen who had comprehended the profound of the stars. Of course, there were also a very small number of swordsmen who cultivated techniques like the Southern Dipper mind refining scripture that needed the stargazing platform. From now on, Chumu would be one more person. The stargazing platform was 999 meters tall. It was man-made and stood on the ground like a pyramid, pointing straight at the sky of the Archean world. There were many patterns and ancient characters on the edge of the stargazing platform. Chumu did not recognize any of them. The ancient characters and complex patterns crisscrossed, forming a mysterious and complex pattern that surrounded the entire stargazing platform. When Chumu arrived, it was night. The stargazing platform was only used at night. During the day, the stargazing platform would not be opened. Under the night sky, the Archean world was filled with stars. The ancient characters and complex patterns around the stargazing platform emitted a faint light. There seemed to be specks of starlight around the stargazing platform, dancing like fireflies. It was very beautiful. The stargazing platform also required the name of a battle squad and consumed battle points. 10 battle points per night. It was even more expensive than the myriad evil valley. For Chumu, battle points were like money. If he ran out, he could earn more. Only the improvement of his strength was the most important. Once he condensed the second will star, he would improve in all aspects. The benefits were very obvious, so why not? There was a flight of stairs on each side of the pyramid-like stargazing platform. Following one of the stairs, Chumu went up. Not long after, he reached the top of the stargazing platform. This was a square with a radius of 100 meters. The floor was smooth, as if it had been carved out of a huge piece of stone. When Chumu reached the top, there were already 2 figures on the stargazing platform. They were not related to each other and were scattered in 2 different places. There was a faint fluctuation of star power around the 2 figures. They were completely unaware of Chumu's arrival. The stargazing platform was even more strictly guarded than the myriad evil valley. One could not fight here. Once they did, they would immediately be killed by the hidden seals. Choosing a place, Chumu sat down cross-legged. Vaguely, his sharp intuition could sense the terrifying seals hidden everywhere on the stargazing platform. Casting aside distracting thoughts, Chumu closed his eyes. The will star in his spiritual world flickered. An extremely pure spiritual consciousness spread out, condensing into a beam and spreading from the top of his head to the sky. In the blink of an eye, Chumu's spiritual consciousness reached a height of 1,000 meters. Adding the height of the stargazing platform and the human body, it was almost 2,000 meters high. If it were anywhere else, even at a height of 3,000 meters, 4,000 meters, or 5,000 meters, the fluctuations of star power would be very weak. After all, the sky of the immemorial world was very high. A few thousand meters was insignificant. However, in this place, when Chumu released his mental remembrance, he immediately felt a clear fluctuation of star energy. Although each strand wasn't very strong, it was very pure. Among the numerous fluctuations of star power, Chu Mu quickly distinguished the fluctuations of the second star of the Southern Dipper, Tianxiang, by relying on the senses of the heavenly star. He locked onto it. Then, using his spiritual consciousness as a bridge, he guided the star power of Tianxiang into his spiritual world to temper his spiritual consciousness. Compared to the tempering of the heavenly star scripture before, this time it was clearly more efficient. It was a full 10 times better. This carefree feeling made Chu Mu intoxicated. Soon, Chu Mu was immersed in the tempering of the star power. The power of the spiritual consciousness in his spiritual world was cleansed and tempered by the star power again and again. The impurities were removed, making it purer and stronger. This was difficult to achieve in one go. It required a considerable amount of time to temper it slowly. Fortunately, there was the stargazing platform, which could greatly increase the efficiency of tempering. It wasn't until the night passed and the day arrived that Chu Mu felt the power of the stars become extremely weak. He only woke up intermittently. He knew that this time's cultivation was over. He could only wait until night fell to continue refining. In the blink of an eye, time flew by. Half a month had already passed. In this half a month, whenever night came, Chu Mu would come to the star observation platform to receive the power of the Tianxiang star and refine his mental intent. After half a month of continuous refinement, his mental intent was cleansed again and became even purer. This progress made Chu Mu know that in a few days, he would be able to condense a star of consciousness again. Today, during the day, Qin Shanhe came to Chu Mu's sword tower. He could not hide the excitement on his face. "Captain, the effect of the 6th transformation sword intent pill is really too good." Qin Shanhe's tone was very excited as soon as he spoke. "What do you mean?" Chu Mu could not help but ask. According to the records of medicinal pills, the sword intent pill could help to double the tempering speed for a day. A high-grade sword intent pill would have an additional increase in the tempering effect of a low-grade sword intent. As for the extent of the increase, Chu Mu did not know. But now Chu Mu knew. For the 6th transformation sword intent pill, Qin Shanhe's sword intent was at the 3rd transformation. To temper it to the 4th transformation, it meant that the grade of the pill was 2 grades higher than his sword intent. A 6th transformation sword intent pill actually allowed Qin Shanhe to speed up the tempering for 4 consecutive days. Moreover, the tempering speed had increased by 4 times. This meant that the 4th transformation sword intent pill should help Qin Shanhe double the tempering speed for a day. The 5th transformation sword intent pill doubled the tempering speed and doubled the tempering speed again. Moreover, after taking the sword intent pill, one would enter a state where one's spiritual consciousness would be more focused and efficient. Chapter 704. There was no doubt that Qin Shanhe was extremely excited. 4 times the efficiency of tempering was equivalent to 5 times the original. Each pill could last for 4 days. He had a total of 10 pills, which meant that they could last for 40 days. In total, it was equivalent to 200 days of tempering. Coupled with the 9 revolving true yang heart seal, if he put his heart and soul into it, he could completely temper his sword will to the 4th revolution or even the peak of the 4th revolution. Similarly, his profound meaning could also reach the 4th revolution or even the peak of the 4th revolution. With the peak of the 4th revolution sword will and profound meaning, coupled with all other means, his strength should not be a burden to Chu Mu anymore. At the thought of this, Qin Shanhe was full of energy as if he had been injected with chicken blood. After informing Chu Mu of the situation, Qin Shanhe immediately left and returned to the sword tower to continue tempering his sword will. The effect of the sword will pill lasted for 4 days. It was available all the time, and he did not want to waste it like this. Therefore, he allocated almost all of his time to tempering his sword will wholeheartedly. Tonight was a very important night because Chu Mu was going to condense the 2nd will star. However, with his previous experience and the clear fluctuation of the power of the stars in the stargazing platform, condensing the second will star was not a dangerous thing for Chu Mu. A large amount of power of the stars in the celestial phenomenon star was guided into the spiritual world until it was full. Then, Chu Mu withdrew his spiritual consciousness and cut off the source of the power of the stars. He activated his mental cultivation method and began to cooperate with the power of the stars to compress the incomparably pure spiritual consciousness. Although he had experienced it once and was familiar with the process, it was not easy to condense the second will star. Time and time again, he had to compress it with his powerful spiritual consciousness, and his spiritual world had to bear the impact of the pressure again and again. Under the repeated shocks and under Chu Mu's tenacious will, he did his best to compress it for the last time. An explosion sounded and shook the spiritual world. It was as if thunder was rolling, and in the midst of countless dust and smoke, the second will star was like a star hanging in the sky above the spiritual world. It was a distance away from the first will star, but it seemed to be responding to each other. As the second intense star was formed, Chu Mu immediately felt a sense of fullness in his mental world. It was a very powerful feeling. He realized that his spiritual will seemed to have become purer than before, which was very rare. He tried to release his spiritual consciousness, and it covered an area of 200 meters, which was twice as large as before. When it was condensed into a beam, it reached 2,000 meters, which was also twice as large as before. The quantity of his spiritual will had increased and become more powerful. Now, in Chu Mu's spiritual world, all of his spiritual willpower had been condensed into 2 spiritual stars. The new spiritual willpower was naturally developing bit by bit, and he would have to wait for a few months for the next condensation. During this time, Chu Mu could put aside the cultivation of the Southern Dipper mind refining scripture and spend his time on other things. The first benefit of the increase in the amount of mental power was that the speed and efficiency of studying the sixth-hand seal of the 9 revolution heavenly shocking seal had increased by a lot. Originally, he would need half a month to complete it, but now, he only needed less than 10 days. 10 days had passed, and Qin Shanhe still hadn't appeared. He must have been in seclusion in his sword tower, concentrating on refining his sword intent. He had also finished studying the sixth-hand seal of the 9 revolution heavenly shocking seal and perfected it. After trying to refine it, the second benefit of condensing the second spiritual star was also revealed. The refining speed of the sword intent had increased by about 50%. Because with the increase in the amount of his spiritual will, he could control it more easily, and the frequency of the sword intent's vibration had increased. I still have 230 battle points, which is enough for me to stay in the 1000 Evil Valley for 23 days. With the 6th Revolution Sword Intent Pill and the 6th Revolution Profound Pill, as well as the current increase, it's enough for me to refine my Sword Intent and Gold Profound to the 6th Revolution. Chu Mu thought to himself. The 6th Revolution was the limit of the Sky Edge Sword Palace's elite disciples. Currently, the Sword Palace had more than 100,000 elite disciples, but there were very few swordsmen whose sword intent and profound had reached the 6th Revolution. Once his sword intent and profound reached the 6th Revolution, Chu Mu would stand at the top of the elite disciples. At that time, besides those swordsmen whose cultivation had reached the God condensation realm, no one in the Sword Palace would be his opponent. Without hesitation, Chu Mu immediately left the sword tower and headed for the 1000 Evil Valley. The strength of his spiritual will allowed Chu Mu to go deeper into the 1000 Evil Valley. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to feel any pressure from the 1000 Evil Valley's cold, baleful qi. When he went 100 meters deeper than last time, Chu Mu's spiritual world was filled with an endless amount of cold, baleful qi. The gray smoke was extremely dense, rolling and corroding his sword intent and profound. The cold baleful qi in this place was even denser and more corrosive, so naturally, the refining effect would be better. Chu Mu took out the 6th Revolution Sword Intent pill and threw it into his mouth. The pill's power dissolved, and under the guidance of his spiritual will, it rushed into the spiritual world. Then, without Chu Mu's guidance, the Sword Intent pill's power naturally rushed towards the Sword Intent. However, the cold baleful Qi was unwilling to do so, and actually began to compete with the Sword Intent pill's power. Chu Mu was shocked. He originally thought that taking the pill would help with the refinement, but he didn't expect such a situation to occur. With the two competing, his Sword Intent couldn't be refined at all. He made a prompt decision and activated his spiritual will again, using the same method as last time to guide the cold baleful Qi to guide the two conflicting powers. It took him a long time to sort it out, and with the two powers as support, he began to refine his Sword Intent. Chu Mu's Sword Intent was at the 5th Revolution, and the 6th Revolution Sword Intent pill's effect lasted for a day, doubling the refining speed. Up until now, Chu Mu had been staying in the Thousand Evil Valley, focusing on refining his Sword Intent. With the help of the Sword Intent pill, the cold baleful Qi of the Thousand Evil Valley, and the 9 Revolution Heavenly Shocking Seal's Hand Seal, the three powers merged into one. Under the stimulation, the refining speed was 10 times faster than before, and Chu Mu's Sword Intent became even purer at an astonishing speed. Continue to investigate. Find out who killed a team of my Demon Slayer battle team. Wang Jingchen, one of the 2 vice-captains of the Demon Slayer battle team, was furious. His voice rumbled like thunder, and his tall figure and black armor made him look like a demon god. In the past few years, every time the Demon Slayer battle team entered the Crimson Wasteland, they would more or less suffer some losses. However, this was the first time that an entire team had been wiped out. It should be known that the Demon Slayer battle team was one of the 3 super battle teams. Every official team member had reached the 3rd Revolution of Sword Intent and 3rd Revolution of Profound. Their abilities surpassed ordinary swordsmen in all aspects, and they could be considered geniuses. Every one of them had rich battle experience, and all 10 of them had practiced sword formations. When they worked together, they could fight against a swordsman who had reached the 5th Revolution of Sword Intent and Profound. Even with such strength, they had died. The entire team had been wiped out, and even their corpses couldn't be found. Of course, it was also possible that they had encountered a terrifying foreign race and were killed. It was also possible that they had encountered a tyrannical primordial beast and were killed. But no matter what it was, the Demon Slayer battle team would not let them go. They would definitely find the culprit and take revenge. If it was a foreign race, they would kill it. If it was a primordial beast, they would kill it. It was this kind of protection that made the Demon Slayer battle team so cohesive. It was also one of the reasons why they had remained one of the 3 super battle teams. The Demon Slayer battle team's actions naturally attracted the attention of the other 2 super battle teams. Even the first-rate battle teams had noticed and were curious. Chu Mu had been staying in the Evil Valley all this time, so he knew nothing about what was happening outside. On this day, his Sword Intent had finally been tempered to the limit of the 5th Revolution. Then, with a tremor, a sharp light spread from one end of the Sword Intent to the other, spreading out and slicing apart the cold, baleful aura in the surroundings. 6th Revolution of Sword Intent. Without experiencing this power, Chu Mu immediately took a 6th Revolution Profound pill and began refining the metal Profound. In the process of tempering the Sword Intent, the metal Profound was naturally tempered by the cold baleful Qi to a certain extent. It would save some time for the next tempering. Day after day passed, and the 5th Revolution Profound became purer and purer. From the early stage of the 5th Revolution, to the middle stage of the 5th Revolution, to the late stage of the 5th Revolution, to the peak of the 5th Revolution, and finally to the limit of the 5th Revolution. Step by step, the progress was very obvious. This kind of feeling made Chu Mu intoxicated. He wanted so much to be intoxicated and never wake up again. No matter how beautiful the dream was, one must always be awake. With a shake of his mind, a terrifying sharp light flashed past, cutting everything in its path. The metal profound in his spiritual world, that golden energy, was fine, dense, and floating, ignoring everything. Metal profound, sixth revolution. Sixth revolution sword intent. Metal profound, sixth revolution. Chumu muttered to himself in the thick gray mist. When he opened his eyes, a sharp light flowed like a sword. It pierced through the thick gray mist and reached 10 meters away, creating a fine passage. It only disappeared after a breath. The difference between the fifth revolution and the sixth revolution was 1 revolution. The difference in power was huge. Chumu's strength had increased by several folds. At this point, he truly stood at the peak of the elite disciples. Under the spirit concentration realm, no one could be his opponent. And only he knew this. No one else knew. No one knew that Chumu, who had been an elite disciple for less than a year, already possessed such strength. This was because, under normal circumstances, after other swordsmen became elite disciples, they would be considered new elite disciples for a year. It was basically impossible for their strength to increase by much. A year was barely enough for them to stand firm. My sword intent profound has reached the 6th revolution, but I don't feel any burden. In other words, I can continue to refine it until the 7th revolution, or even the 8th revolution. Chumu's eyes once again emitted a sharp light. Every 3 revolutions of sword intent was considered a level. For example, there was a small leap from the 3rd revolution to the 4th revolution, and another leap from the 6th revolution to the 7th revolution. Once Chumu really refined his sword intent and profound to the 7th revolution, the increase in his strength would be even more obvious. The 7th revolution was his next goal. Chapter 705. As expected, he used up all his battle points. Qin Shanha's sword intent and profound had both reached the 4th revolution. His progress was much better than expected. Then, Chumu gave Qin Shanha 10 6th revolution sword intent pills and 10 6th revolution profound pills. He told Qin Shanha to continue refining them. It would be best if he could refine them to the 5th revolution. Without a doubt, that would take a long time. After learning that Chumu's sword intent and profound had both reached the 6th revolution, Qin Shanha was once again stimulated. He took the 20 pills and quickly left, going into seclusion again. Chumu used some time to get used to the 6th revolution sword intent and profound. He also did a statistical integration of all his abilities. He cultivated everything to the limit that he could reach now. His strength had increased by leaps and bounds. Moreover, after a few months of cultivation, he finally cultivated the burning blood transformation to minor completion. It will probably take more than a month to create the 7th seal of the 9 revolution heavenly shocking seal. Thinking, Chumu's eyes suddenly shone with a shocking cold light. He decided to enter the Crimson Wasteland again. This time, he would enter alone. Chumu, come with us. Not long after Chumu entered Sky Peak Valley, 3 people blocked his path. The insignia on their robes let Chumu know their identities, members of the Demon Slayer Squad's elite team. I don't have time. Chumu didn't ask for anything and directly refused. You have to go even if you don't want to. The other party's tone was very unyielding. Their eyes were cold as if they wanted to freeze Chumu. Chumu, we suspect that you have nothing to do with the death of an official Demon Slayer squad. Come with us immediately and accept the investigation. If you have nothing to do with it, the Demon Slayer squad will naturally clear your name, another person said. The moment Chumu heard this, he knew what was going on. However, the other party didn't find him. The reason why they came to find him was probably because he had a conflict with that small team. You think I killed them? Chumu calmly replied with a question. You. The 3 elite members of the Demon Slayer battle team couldn't help but laugh. They looked at Chu Mu with disdain. Even if you had a few more years, you wouldn't be able to do anything to them. Since that's the case, their deaths have nothing to do with me. Chu Mu said, could it be that you can't find the culprit, so you just want to find someone you don't like to frame? The expressions of the 3 men changed. Indeed, when the mission was given to them and their investigation was fruitless, they began to have such thoughts. This time, coming to capture Chu Mu was nothing more than a subconscious thought. No matter how strong the cohesiveness was, there was no guarantee that everyone could do their best. Especially when they had worked hard for a period of time without any results and had to face pressure from above, it was inevitable that they would have thoughts of taking advantage of the situation. Don't talk nonsense. We will never accuse others unjustly. Even if he had those thoughts, he couldn't admit it. Otherwise, it would be a blow to the Demon Slayer team's reputation. Then you can continue your investigation. Chu Mu smiled faintly and stepped forward. His body flickered and he passed by the 3 men. He strode towards the entrance of Sky Peak Valley. The 3 elite members of the Demon Slayer battle team only saw a shadow flash in front of them. Chu Mu disappeared before their eyes. Their expressions immediately changed. Stop right there. An angry roar sounded like an angry lion. If you don't stop, it means you are the culprit. However, under their angry gazes, Chu Mu walked out of Sky Peak Valley without hesitation, completely ignoring them. Using his movement technique, he quickly left. When the 3 elite members of the Demon Slayer battle team chased after him, they could only see Chu Mu's back quickly disappearing. At this speed, they knew they couldn't catch up. Let's go. We'll go back and report immediately. Chu Mu's strength is beyond our expectations, one of them said. One of the Demon Slayer battle team's elders, Jin Yanlei, had long since ordered them to pay attention to Chu Mu's movements. It's best if Chu Mu becomes the main suspect. This one laughed sinisterly. That's right. One could imagine that once the Demon Slayer battle team listed Chu Mu as the main suspect, then his every move would be monitored. The sky was high for birds to fly, and the sea was wide for fish to swim. The matter of the Demon Slayer battle team was immediately thrown to the back of Chu Mu's mind. He indulged himself in leaping across the crimson wasteland, quickly going deeper and deeper. Without Qin Shanhe accompanying him, it was as if he was free of some restrictions. With his current strength, he could go all out. Even the strength of a God Condensation Realm swordsman might not be able to resist. His speed became faster and faster. Like the wind and lightning, a shadow flashed across the dark brown ground of the crimson wasteland. His speed gradually approached the limit of the speed of sound. Supersonic speed was one of the signs of reaching the God Condensation Realm. Of course, some people with heaven-defying talent could also reach supersonic speed before reaching the God Condensation Realm. Running close to the limit of the speed of sound did not consume much of Chu Mu's physical strength. A primordial vicious beast that was dozens of meters tall appeared in front of him. It was a violent bear. When it saw Chu Mu approaching, it raised its giant bear paw and slapped down like a heavy mountain. The giant paw was covered in a layer of yellow light. That was the power of the vicious beast of the earth element. The paw that was infused with the power of the vicious beast of the earth was like an attack infused with sword energy and the profound of earth. It was extremely terrifying. If Qin Shanhe was facing this attack, he would definitely dodge it immediately. However, Chu Mu ignored it. His aurora-like figure continued to dash forward. The giant paw fell, dangerously landing behind Chu Mu. The ground shattered, and cracks spread in all directions like lightning. Rocks and gravel were sent flying, filling the air with dust. In the blink of an eye, that figure jumped up and swept past the violent bear's neck. The hair-thin golden sword light flashed, like an aurora piercing through the sky. That figure shot forward like an arrow leaving the bow. The hair on the violent bear's neck was cut off. A bloody red line appeared around its neck. blood spurted out like a fountain. Its head slid backward, and its giant body fell to one side. One sword. Just one sword. It did not even stop. It was an instant kill. On Chu Mu's temporary battle record sword token, the original 0 had turned into 16. That violent bear had the power of a 5th revolution sword intent profound sword warrior. After killing the violent bear, Chu Mu left. Human race sword warrior die. The sword light flashed, the human figure floated, and the foreign race warrior died. A vigorous roar resounded through the sky. Its tail was like a giant steel whip. As the ground shook, a huge crack was split open, spreading out like lightning. The sword light fell, and a sorrowful cry was heard. A figure flashed, collected the spoils of war, and left again. Unknowingly, 3 days had passed since Chu Mu entered the Crimson Wasteland. On the temporary battle record sword token at his waist, there were 292 battle points. These battle points were enough to show how much Chu Mu had gained in these few days. Indeed, without Qin Shanhe, although there was one less person to watch out for when he was resting, there was also one less burden. Although Chu Mu didn't want to use the word burden to describe him, there was no doubt that Qin Shanhe, whose strength was far inferior to Chu Mu's, moving with him was equivalent to slowing down Chu Mu's pace. That was why Chu Mu wanted Qin Shanhe to continue refining his sword intent and profound meaning. 4th revolution was not enough. He had to at least reach 5th revolution. Otherwise, if the difference in their power was too great, Chu Mu would not be able to save Qin Shanhe every time they encountered an extremely dangerous situation. To fight side by side, one needed to have the power to fight side by side. Qin Shanhe also understood this point. That was why he wanted to improve as soon as possible, especially after obtaining the 6th revolution sword intent pill and 6th revolution profound meaning pill. In 3 days, Chu Mu killed some primordial ferocious beasts and met some foreign tribes. He killed all of them. Among them, the strongest had reached the 6th revolution sword intent and 6th revolution profound meaning swordsman. However, they were still not a match for Chu Mu. He killed them with just 3 swords. At night, the blood demons moved. Under Chu Mu's sword, these blood demons could only turn into battle points. Fighting alone and killing to his heart's content allowed Chu Mu to fully release his inner feelings. He longed for an opponent who could force him to use his full strength. On the 5th day, the temporary battle record sword token at Chu Mu's waist increased again, reaching 332 battle points. Now, there were 3 people in front of Chu Mu. To be precise, they were 3 foreign tribes. The 3 of them were from different tribes. The one on the far left was more handsome than a human. He wore a strange green robe. His body was thin and gave people a feeling of liveliness. His ears were sharper than a human's. He was from the spirit tribe of the 100 tribes. He was good at speed and his movements were flexible. He carried a thin sword on his back. The one in the middle wore animal skin clothes. Half of his upper body was exposed. His bronze muscles were as strong as steel, and his short hair was like steel needles. This person's body was of normal size. He had a savage aura. His body looked like a human's, but in fact, whether it was his bones or his muscles, they were more compact than a human's. They contained a terrifying explosive power. This person was from the Berserker tribe of the 100 tribes. The Berserker tribe was famous for their belligerence. Their bodies did not look particularly tall, but they contained shocking power. They were known for their explosive power. This Berserker tribe member carried a heavy axe on his shoulder. The foreign tribe member on the far right was the Demon Eye tribe member that Chu Mu had killed before. Although he did not understand why 3 people from different tribes would come together, Chu Mu knew that these 3 foreign tribes were very strong. They all had the strength of a rank 6 sword intent or rank 6 profound sword practitioner. In an instant, the 3 foreign tribes launched their attack. The Demon Eye tribe members' pupils trembled. 2 gray lights were faintly discernible. Before Chu Mu could react, They shot into Chu Mu's eyes and entered his spiritual world. Immediately after, the Demon Eye tribe member turned into a black light and shot straight at Chu Mu. A sharp light condensed in his hand. The Berserker tribe member roared and leaped high. He held the axe with both hands. A bronze light flickered on the blade of the axe. With a swing of the axe, he could split mountains and split the earth. The spirit tribe member's figure flashed. He turned into a wisp of smoke and approached Chu Mu. The thin sword on his back was unsheathed. It turned into a cold light and coordinated with his figure. It was faintly discernible. It could attack every part of Chu Mu's body. There was nowhere to dodge. A terrifying aura locked onto Chu Mu. Chu Mu's eyelids lifted slightly. A golden light flashed in the depths of his pupils. Then, the 8 desolate sky swords were unsheathed at an unbelievable speed. In a thousandth of a second, 6 swords were released. Chu Mu's figure also passed by the spirit tribe member. He sheathed his swords. At the same time, 3 sounds came from behind him. Chapter 706. The 3 figures stood at different angles and maintained different postures. The only thing they had in common was that their eyes were filled with disbelief, and there was a thin red dot on their throats. Their lips moved, but they could not make a sound. They turned their heads with difficulty, but when they turned halfway they could not move anymore, and their bodies fell forward. The 3 foreign tribesmen, whose strength was equivalent to a 6th Revolution sword intent and a 6th Revolution profound sword practitioner, not only did they not cause any harm to Chu Mu, but they were also easily dealt with by Chu Mu. 3 swords had broken their attacks, and 3 swords had killed them. Even when they died, they could not believe that this human swordsman's strength was so strong. Could he be in the God condensation realm? Chu Mu would not give them an answer, and they could not wait until then, because death had come, and everything was lost. Chu Mu gently exhaled. Just now, besides not using the burning blood transformation, he had used all his strength. The effect was amazing, and it also made Chu Mu fully aware of his own strength. Invincible under the God condensation realm, it was not just empty words. The Demon Eye attack of the Demon Eye tribesmen was very strong, and it was close to Chu Mu's mind. If it had been any other 6th Revolution swordsman, they would have been trapped in the battle against the Demon Eye, and their perception of the outside world would be greatly reduced. They would have undoubtedly become a pig waiting to be slaughtered. However, Chu Mu's mind was unbelievably strong, and the Demon Eye attack of the Demon Eye tribesmen was completely ineffective. It was directly defeated by Chu Mu's strong mind. No matter what, the 3 foreign tribesmen's teamwork was very well coordinated. Unfortunately, they had met Chu Mu, a monster that could not be calculated with common sense. The 3 foreign tribesmen were very strong, and dying under Chu Mu's sword brought Chu Mu a rich income of battle points. Each of them had 32 points, and a total of 96 points. 388 points were Chu Mu's current battle points. 1,000 battle points. It won't take long. Chu Mu smiled to himself. Among the unrated battle teams, only he dared to say this. This was because the majority of the members of the other unrated battle teams were only at the first transition, with a portion at the second transition. As for the third transition, there were very few of them. Chu Mu decided to stay in the Crimson Wasteland and hunt non-stop until his battle points exceeded 1,000. If he could earn more, he could use the 1,000 battle points to make the Zhentian battle team an official battle team. The remaining points could be used to support his training or buy some useful items. Chu Mu's wealth had increased by quite a bit after he had taken the spatial rings and weapons of the 3 foreign experts with ease. He destroyed the corpses and left like the wind. His killing intent had also dissipated with the desolate wind. There were a total of 10 people gathered together to rest. Their robes were tattered, and it was clear that they had experienced many battles. Looking at their position and posture, one could tell that they were very experienced. They were in a state where they could attack or dodge at any time. This was a battle team that had experienced hundreds of battles. What a terrifying fellow! I wonder which race he is from. One of the members of the team sighed. Looking at the wounds of the ancient beasts, they are sword wounds. He is most likely a human swordsman. A middle-aged man in the team said. Not necessarily. Among the 100 races, we are not the only ones who use swords. No matter what, he is still a terrifying fellow. Judging from the traces, he was alone. Every ancient beast was killed with a single sword strike. With such strength, he has either reached the god condensation realm, or he is basically invincible among those below the god condensation realm. Another 7 days passed. The number of beasts, blood demons, and foreign races that died under Chu Mu's sword increased. Most of the foreign races would be destroyed by Chu Mu. However, the stronger the ancient beasts were, the larger their bodies would be. Chu Mu did not waste time to destroy the corpses of the ancient beasts. The large corpses left behind were discovered by some passing teams. After examining the wounds, it caused a lot of shock. On the surface of the surrounding traces, there was only one person who attacked, or even only one person. There was only one wound, and it was a fatal wound caused by a sword. Those who had been in the Crimson Wasteland for many years had good eyesight. Some of the better ones could even reconstruct the situation of the battle based on the traces left behind. It was precisely because of this that people were shocked. The dead ancient beasts were at the level of a first transition swordsman, and some were at the level of a sixth transition swordsman. Their strength was different, but the way they died was the same. No one knew who the attacker was. It was even difficult to determine the race. They only felt terrified. If it was a foreign race, would they be completely wiped out if they encountered him? All these signs led people to give this unknown terrifying figure a name, the Wasteland Slaughterer. Because until now more than 100 ancient beast corpses had been found. The Crimson Wasteland was very vast. Even with Chu Mu's speed, it was impossible for him to travel through it in a short time. The current him could be considered to have truly entered the depths of the Crimson Wasteland. Along the way, all the strong opponents he encountered all died under Chu Mu's sword. None of them were lucky enough to survive. They became Chu Mu's spoils of war, and also became Chu Mu's battle points. Unknowingly, the battle points on Chu Mu's temporary battle points soared at his waist sword, reaching 822 points. He was very close to 1,000 points. Another ancient beast died under Chu Mu's sword. This was a black python that was at the level of a third transition swordsman. After killing it, Chu Mu obtained another 4 battle points. 826 battle points. Not continuing forward, Chu Mu used his sword to cut and skin the python. Then, he dug out a piece of meat that was about a dozen kilograms and started a fire to roast it. Chu Mu was not a saint without desires. After entering the Crimson Wasteland for so long, he had been constantly rushing and fighting. He had never truly rested. The sizzling sound of roasting meat rang out, and a rich fragrance wafted out. Some ancient beast's meat could not be eaten as it would cause damage to the human body. However, some ancient beast's meat was delicious. This was especially true for snake-type ancient beasts. Their meat was tender and refreshing, leaving a rich aftertaste. Golden oil dripped from the roasted snake meat and landed on the fire, causing the flames to surge and roast crazily. Such ferocious flames would instantly turn ordinary snake-type meat into charcoal. However, the meat of ancient beasts contained powerful energy. Ordinary flames could not cook them at all. He leisurely flipped the roasted meat, allowing the fierce flames to roast this large piece of meat, allowing the heat to seep into the meat. 15 minutes later, Chu Mu took out various seasonings that he had stored for a long time from his spatial ring. He sprinkled a bit of each of them on the meat. Under the roasting flames, the fragrance of the seasonings seeped into the meat, causing the aroma to become even richer. It also carried other flavors, giving off a very colorful feeling. Chu Mu's nose twitched a few times. It seemed that he had not roasted meat for himself in such a leisurely manner in a very long time. The rich aroma of the roasted meat drifted with the wind, drifting very far away. It also attracted a group of people over. "What a fragrant roasted meat!" A rough voice rang out, followed by the sound of footsteps. Chu Mu did not turn his head, nor did he reveal any surprise. He had already sensed them when they were 1,000 meters away. There was a total of one person. He was over 2 meters tall, and his black and red clothes could not hide his steel-like muscles. He seemed like a small giant. His dark face carried a hint of a smile, and his eyes were like a fierce tiger's. They were filled with might. Just his figure alone was enough to make people feel pressured. Coupled with his presence, it was extremely shocking. This person carried a huge sword that was almost 2 meters long on his back. It was like a door plank. When this small giant-like figure walked over, it was as if a shadow had suddenly shrouded it. The enormous pressure caused the air to nearly freeze. The main source of the pressure was the small giant-like swordsman. That aura even made Chu Mu feel astonished. "Brother, can you give me half of such fragrant roasted meat?" The rough voice rang out again, exploding in his ears like thunder. This person sat down beside Chu Mu and placed his huge sword across his legs. He did not seem like a stranger at all. With a wave of his hand, a dark red wine gourd appeared. "I'll treat you to a drink." Chu Mu glanced at the opponent. His expression was calm, but in his heart, he was shocked by the enormous aura the opponent unintentionally emitted and the small giant-like figure. "Okay." Chu Mu gave a simple answer. He knew at first glance that this person was very powerful. Otherwise, he would not have entered the interior of the Crimson Wasteland alone. Soon, the roasted meat was done. Chu Mu drew a line in the air with his finger, and the roasted meat was split into 2 halves. One half automatically flew toward the small giant. "Good move!" The small giant grinned, revealing a mouthful of pure white teeth. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. From Chu Mu's simple move, it could be seen that Chu Mu's control over his own strength had reached an extremely profound level. He threw the dark red wine gourd to Chu Mu and caught the barbecued meat himself. Without another word, he opened his mouth wide and took a big bite of the barbecued meat with his pearly white teeth that could even crush diamonds. He started chewing. Chu Mu took the wine gourd and placed it to the side. He also began to eat the roasted meat. There were several kilograms of roasted meat. After splitting half, there was still 6 to 7 kilograms left. It was enough to eat. The small giant took a few bites of the roasted meat and swallowed it. He then took out another wine gourd and opened it. A rich and unique wine fragrance wafted out. He drank several mouthfuls and continued eating. The wine was blood-red like blood. It carried a sweet and fishy smell. When mixed with the wine fragrance, it brought out the best in each other. Combined with the roasted meat, it was simply intoxicating. Compared to the small giant, Chu Mu's table manners were very refined. Not long after, the small giant finished 6 to 7 kilograms of barbecued meat and swallowed it all. It then took a big gulp of wine before looking at Chu Mu, a sharp glint in its eyes. "I say, you must be that wasteland slaughterer." The small giant grinned and said to Chu Mu. Chapter 707. Chu Mu did not know that he was called the slaughterer of the wasteland. "My name is Tu Gang, a disciple of the Hongtian sect. You must be a disciple of the Sky Edge Sword Palace." The little giant Tu Gang grinned. "What's your name?" Tu Gang's attitude was very casual. It was his first time meeting Chu Mu, but he could talk to him like an old friend. Some might think that he was a one-track-minded person. However, Chu Mu did not think so. Walking alone in the Crimson Wasteland, no matter how strong he was, a one-track-minded person would not be able to survive. However, one had to admit that Tu Gang's appearance was very valiant. It was easy to think that he was a one-track-minded person. "Chu Mu." Chu Mu smiled faintly and said, "Good name." Tu Gang said casually, "Brother Chu, you should be very strong. Why don't we work together and explore a dangerous place?" "What dangerous place?" Chu asked. It's a stone tomb in the Crimson Wasteland. Danger and opportunity coexist. Those who are not strong enough would not dare to enter. Tu Gang said. You have been there before? Chu asked as he ate the roasted meat. I have just been there once. However, the stone tomb was discovered more than 10 years ago. The treasures outside have all been dug up. I can only go deeper. I found a tomb in the depth. Unfortunately, the tomb's restrictions were too strong. I could not break it open by myself. Tu Gang said regretfully. How do we split the rewards? Chu asked. Equally. Tu Gang said. Chu nodded. After finishing the snake meat, he drank a mouthful of wine. His skin turned red and his blood temperature rose. He kept the wine gourd in his spatial ring. Although this wine did not have the effect of tempering one's mental state, it tasted great and was very violent. That is the 10,000 beasts' blood. It is brewed using the blood of 10,000 ancient beasts by our Hongtian sect. Not only is it delicious, it is also very violent. Ordinary people cannot afford to drink it. Tu Gang introduced. Ordinary people could not afford to drink it. It meant that ordinary swordsmen could not withstand the violence of the 10,000 beasts' blood. It was like swallowing flames. However, the 10,000 beasts' blood was indeed very good. It could restore one's physical strength and also had a certain blood replenishing effect. The blood of 10,000 primordial ferocious beasts, each of which contained extraordinary power, was brewed using a special method to condense the power within into one. If one could withstand the violent nature of the 10,000 beasts' blood and drink it regularly, it could strengthen one's vitality and body. After extinguishing the flames and erasing the remaining traces, Chu and Tu Gang quickly left. Chu did not know the location of the stone tomb, so he could only follow Tu Gang. The stone tomb was located at the center of the Blood Wasteland. In this place, rank 6 immemorial ferocious beasts would often appear. It was said that there were even more terrifying immemorial ferocious beasts living here. Thus, those who were not strong enough would not dare to come here. As far as I know, there are a total of 4 entrances to the stone tomb. We are heading towards the eastern entrance. Tu Gang said. Although the stone tomb has been discovered for more than 10 years and the outer areas have been completely explored, there are still many people who continue to explore inside. Other than us humans, there are also experts from other races. Once we meet inside, a life and death battle may erupt. Even swordsmen of the human race may not necessarily trust each other. Chu nodded. Many times, benefits were everything. Tu Gang didn't say much about this. He only introduced what he knew about the stone tomb. He knew that if Chu dared to enter the Blood Wasteland alone, not only did he have exceptional strength, his intelligence wasn't weak either. Both of them were very strong and could run very quickly. However, Tu Gang's body was very big, so he made a lot of noise when he ran. About half a day later, Chu saw a gray-white door. It was a building that looked like a stone house. 3 sides were sealed, and one side was the entrance. Chu and Tu Gang walked to the door and looked inside. It was pitch black, and they could vaguely see a flight of stairs leading down. Let's go, Tu Gang said as he took the lead and walked through the door. He followed the stairs down step by step. First, it was pitch black, but he could still use his spiritual sense. Then, there was light in front of him, illuminating the surroundings. The color was somewhat pale. Wisps of cold aura filled the air, contrasting with the pale white light, causing the atmosphere in the stone tomb to become even more strange. This stone tomb was obviously man-made. Whether it was the floor, the walls, or the roof, they were all made of gray-green stone slabs. On the roof, there was a luminous pearl every few hundred meters. According to Tu Gang, this stone tomb was built a long, long time ago. It seemed to be even older than the Crimson Wasteland. The stone tomb was located under the ground of the Crimson Wasteland like a maze. There were many tombs, and each of them had a powerful warrior buried inside. Let's go. Tu Gang's goal was very clear. He walked as fast as he could. Chu-Mu followed closely behind. Not long after, they saw a tomb. The stone door of the tomb was open, and there was nothing inside. Obviously, everything had been taken away. Twisting and turning, Chu-Mu memorized the route with his powerful memory. Unknowingly, the two entered the depths of the stone tomb. "We're almost there," Tu Gang said. According to his research, the experts buried in the stone tomb had different strengths when they were alive. Normally, those buried in the outer areas were weaker. The deeper they went, the stronger they were. Similarly, the stronger the expert's tomb, the more valuable the items inside would be. Tu Gang was not sure how big the stone tomb was. After more than 10 years, he had not heard of anyone who had walked through the entire stone tomb. Therefore, he did not know the exact location of the tomb that he had found not long ago. He only felt that it would take a long time to walk, so it should be considered deep inside the stone tomb. "It's here." Tu Gang's running footsteps suddenly stopped. Without any hesitation, he quickly turned around and faced a stone door. It was an unopened tomb. Chu-Mu also stopped and turned around, looking at the stone door of the unopened tomb. Based on his senses, there were various seals on the stone door. There were 2 ways to open the stone door. The first was to have a profound understanding of seals and break the seals. The second was to break the seals with brute force. Seals were an independent skill. It had a complete system, just like alchemy and sword forging. To study seals, not only did one need to have the corresponding talent, one also needed to put in a lot of time. As a swordsman who pursued the sword Dao, Tu Gang would definitely not spend his limited time on seals. That would only lead to him being proficient in both the sword Dao and seals. In the end, he would achieve nothing. For example, Chu-Mu had already spent some time on sword forging. Moreover, there were too many things he needed to comprehend. He always felt that he did not have enough time, so how could he spend it on seals? Sealing was different from sword forging. There was a slight connection between sword forging and swordsmanship. Therefore, sword forging great grandmasters had extraordinary strength and extraordinary achievements in swordsmanship. However, the great grandmasters in the field of sealing were not very strong. "Attack," Tu Gang said as he pulled out the huge sword on his back. His physique combined with the huge sword gave off an extremely oppressive feeling. He held the sword with both hands and swung it. A stream of light flashed on the huge sword. Shortly after, it turned into a thick bronze-colored sword ray, shooting through the air and slashing at the seals on the stone door. The bronze-colored sword ray did not fluctuate at all. It was only when it slashed at the stone door that all of its power erupted. The seals on the stone door came into effect, shattering the bronze-colored sword ray and causing layers of ripples to appear on the seals. Extreme Gate Realm. Chu-Mu's pupils shrank as he was secretly shocked. He glanced at Tu Gang. Up until now, this was the only swordsman he had seen other than himself who had reached the Extreme Gate Realm in terms of strength control. Of course, those Sword of Gojosian experts might have surpassed the Extreme Gate Realm. However, they were much older than Chu-Mu and Chu-Mu had never seen them before. Tu Gang was definitely not an ordinary disciple of the Hongtian sect. Of course, he did not say that he was an ordinary disciple of the Hongtian sect. "Brother Chu, let's attack together and hit the same spot," Tu Gang said. Chu-Mu nodded. "Attack!" Tu Gang shouted as he swung his huge sword again. At the same time, Chu-Mu pulled out his sword and a sword ray shot through the air. The golden sword ray and the bronze-colored sword ray each drew a trajectory and aimed at the same target. In an instant, the 2 sword rays slashed at the same spot on the seal at almost the same time, causing an explosion of power. Extreme Gate Realm. As expected, Tu Gang glanced at Chu-Mu as he thought to himself. The 2 sword rays slashed at the same spot on the seal. As they dissipated, layers of ripples appeared on the seal, causing it to flicker continuously. "All right, with the 2 of us working together, Our attack power should be enough to shake the seal. With a few more attacks, we will definitely be able to break the seal. Two Gang said happily. With his attack power, he could barely shake the seal. With Chu Mu's attack power, their attacks would be multiplied and they would be able to shake the seal. With continuous attacks, there was hope for them to break the seal on the stone door and open the tomb. The creator of this tomb must have been extremely powerful, and the seal he left behind must be very unique. Every seal on the stone door of the tomb had the ability to automatically replenish its energy. Two Gang's attack power was not weak, but the amount of energy he expended on the seal was almost equal to the recovery speed of the seal. In other words, Two Gang's continuous attacks would not be able to break the seal unless his attack power was multiplied. With the addition of Chu Mu, under the superposition of the two extreme sword auras, the explosive destructive power would multiply. Such an attack would exhaust the seal and completely exceed the seal's recovery speed. Therefore, as long as the two of them continued to attack, it might not take long for them to break the seal on the stone door and open the door to the tomb. "Brother Chu, let's go all out," Two Gang said excitedly. The two of them gathered their strength and prepared to attack continuously to break the seal on the stone door. "Two human swordsmen, how dare you steal the tomb we found? Kill them without mercy." An unexpected voice sounded. Chapter 708. As he shouted, the temperature in the air rose by several hundred degrees. Then, Chu Mu and Two Gang's eyes were filled with a crimson-red light. With a roar like that of an ancient beast, the crimson-red light turned into a serpent dragon that charged towards Chu Mu and Two Gang. The flaming serpent was awe-inspiring. Everywhere it passed, the air seemed to be ignited and crackling sounds could be heard. A terrifyingly high temperature swept towards them, wanting to roast Chu Mu and Two Gang. "Yen Clan." Two Gang's expression changed slightly as he shouted. He slashed out with his huge sword that was like a door. The bronze sword light tore through the air and attacked the flaming serpent. Chu Mu also saw the foreign clansmen that were approaching. They looked like humans, but their bodies were as thin as the spirit clans. Their hair and eyebrows were fiery red like burning flames. Their pupils were also fiery red. The Yen clan was one of the 100 clans of the immemorial world. They were born with a high affinity for fire. They could quickly comprehend the concept of fire and the profound meaning of fire. Moreover, they had a unique talent in the use of fire energy, forming a complete system that far surpassed humans. Simply put, the flames in the hands of the Yen clan members were like the swords in the hands of human swordsmen. Those who could enter the interior of the Crimson Wasteland, regardless of race, were all extraordinary. For example, these 3 Yen clan members were all equivalent to a 6th Revolution swordsman. The one who attacked was only one of the Yen clan members. The flaming serpent that was as thick as a thigh opened its mouth and spat out a torrent of flames towards Two Gang's bronze sword light. The flaming serpent was formed by the Yen clan members using the power of fire and the profound meaning of fire. It was a type of attack, but the flaming serpent could actually attack like a real ancient beast. One could not help but sigh at the Yen clan members' unique control of fire energy. The bronze sword light was the limit of sword light. It was extremely powerful. The torrent of flames spat out by the flaming serpent was instantly cut apart, but the power of the bronze sword light did not decrease. The Yen clan members' eyebrows rose, and the other 2 Yen clan members also attacked. Chu Mu discovered that the flame clan member was holding a short staff. The end of the short staff was embedded with a fiery red crystal. The other 2 Yen clan members waved their short staffs, and flames formed a storm of flames that swept towards Chu Mu. The other one turned into a giant flaming bird. All of them charged towards Chu Mu. Chu Mu lifted his eyelids and a shocking cold glint shot out. Immediately after, his body was swept away by the flaming storm and flaming bird, turning into nothingness. The 2 Yen clansmen were not happy at all. Instead, they were shocked and quickly waved their short staves. Rings of fire appeared around their bodies and surrounded them, protecting them. The temperature of the flames was extremely high. Even refined steel would be melted in an instant, but this was unable to stop Chu Mu. His sword was wrapped in a layer of desolation sword chi, ignoring the high temperature of the flames. Under the power of the mountain trembling energy, it instantly broke through the flames and slashed towards the Yen clan member. An extreme sense of danger engulfed his entire body, causing him to tremble. The Yen clan member's expression changed drastically. A ball of flames emerged from the soles of his feet, and it only needed a moment to spread to his entire body. However, the flames had only spread halfway when Chu Mu's sword silently touched his throat. Like a poisonous snake flicking its tongue, Chu Mu's body disappeared and reappeared beside the other Yen clan member. Tu Gang's bronze sword light collided with the flaming serpent and dissipated. Tu Gang once again slashed out a bronze sword light. His legs slightly bent as he forcefully stomped on the ground. With a boom, his entire body shot out like a cannonball, following closely behind the bronze sword light. His huge sword was like a ferocious fong, creating a terrifying sound of wind breaking as it rushed towards the Yen clan member. 2 against 2. Although the Yen clan member who was targeted by Chu Mu was shocked, he didn't lose his composure. He, who had experienced hundreds of battles, immediately made the most precise counterattack. Flames as thick as a finger appeared in the surroundings and shot out like a storm, completely enveloping Chu Mu's body. He himself transformed into a ball of flames and instantly disappeared, reappearing in another place. In order to survive, in order to kill Chu Mu, the Yen clan member used all his strength, not daring to hold back at all. In his hands, the flames seemed to have become alive. The Yen clan member who was fighting with Tu Gang also used all his strength. Originally, he thought that with the strength of the three of them, they would be able to easily take down the two human swordsmen, Chu Mu and Tu Gang. However, he didn't expect that one of them would be killed in the first exchange, and even he himself was in danger. Chu Mu wasn't in a hurry to kill this Yen clan member. He was somewhat curious about the 100 races of the supreme ancient world. Moreover, this wouldn't be the last time he would encounter someone from the Yen clan. He needed to know more about this race. Under the pressure of Chu Mu, the Yen clan member even used his secret technique. His flames were actually tinged with a hint of green. The so-called perfection meant that once the flames were green, the temperature would rise once again. Of course, this was under normal circumstances. Chu Mu had no choice but to activate his protective sword aura to repel this terrifying high temperature. The power of his sword domain was activated, and all the attacks of the Yen clan member were distorted. Chu Mu's figure flashed, passing by the Yen clan member like a ghost. The sword tip wreaked havoc, and he sheathed his sword. On the other side, Tu Gang roared. The huge sword that was like a door slashed down, as if it could split mountains and split the earth. The flames were split apart, and the Yen clan member's body was also split apart. The 3 Yen clan members were all dead. 2 of them died under Chu Mu's sword. Thus, Chu Mu contributed 64 battle points. In addition to Chu Mu's original battle points, he now had 890 battle points. He only needed 110 more to reach 1,000 battle points. These 2 Yen clan members were killed by Chu Mu. Everything on them belonged to Chu Mu. Thus, their interspatial rings and weapons were all taken by Chu Mu. As for the other Yen clan member who was killed by Tu Gang, it belonged to Tu Gang. There were no objections to this distribution. Recover your strength. We'll prepare to break the seal and open the tomb. Tu Gang said. In this battle, they hadn't used up much of their strength. However, they would need to use their full strength in a short while. Thus, it was necessary to restore their strength to its peak state. Since 3 Yen clan members had come here, there might be others. They had to preserve a portion of their strength to deal with the dangers that might come. 15 minutes later, the 2 of them had recovered their strength. The battle just now made them realize that their opponent was very strong. Attack! Tu Gang shouted. Both of his swords struck out. 2 rays of sword light pierced through the air. Kill, kill, kill. His advanced realm strength exploded continuously. 7 rays of sword light shot out consecutively. A total of 14 rays of sword light formed 7 waves of attack. The seal on the stone door flashed crazily. One more time. 2 gang roared and attacked again. Another 2 rays of sword light hit the same spot on the seal. The sound of glass shattering could be heard. Then, the seal on the stone door flashed and solidified. Cracks appeared and spread out. It broke. 2 Gang's face revealed a hint of excitement. Although he hadn't reached his limit, he could only use it once more. This meant that 2 Gang could use his advanced realm strength 9 times. If he went all out, he could use it 10 times. However, at that time, he would be like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered for a short period of time. As he stared at the stone door that was about to disappear, he glanced at Chu Mu from the corner of his eyes. 2 Gang couldn't help but feel surprise. I wonder how many times he can use his advanced realm strength? 2 Gang thought. He felt that it was definitely not below him. It might even be above him. Subconsciously, his impression of Chu Mu increased. At this moment, the seal on the stone door completely shattered and was completely broken. 2 Gang's body flashed and appeared in front of the stone door. His palm, which was thicker than a normal person's, pressed on the stone door and exerted force. The strength of a ferocious beast exploded. With a roar, the muscles on his arms swelled and expanded, instantly pushing the stone door upwards. It could be seen that 2 Gang's body contained a terrifying strength. The profound that he had comprehended was also the profound of strength. This made his strength even more terrifying, far surpassing Chu Mu's. The stone door was pushed open, and a desolate smell of decay suddenly surged out, assaulting their senses. The tomb opened. Chu Mu and 2 Gang walked into the tomb one after another. In the tomb, there was a stone coffin. The lid of the coffin was closed and covered with seals. The seals flickered with a weak light and emitted a weak aura. However, just the aura that leaked out was enough to make Chu Mu and 2 Gang's faces turn serious. Although they had never studied the Tao of seals, they could still be considered knowledgeable people. They could more or less tell that the seals on the stone coffin were different from the ones on the stone door. Not only did the seals on the stone coffin strengthen its defense, there were also seals on the stone coffin that had a strong offensive power. In other words, if Chu Mu and 2 Gang attacked the stone coffin, they would be counterattacked by the seals. As for how strong the counterattack would be, they couldn't be sure. However, it definitely wouldn't be weak. It might even injure them. A stone coffin that was covered with strong seals. It was obvious that it didn't want anyone to touch it. In the tomb, other than the stone coffin, there was also a stone table. On the stone table, there were 3 items. A piece of crystal clear jade, 2 gourds, one silver gray, and the other a strange color. Could it be? Seeing the 2 gourds, Chu Mu was stunned. A guess flashed through his mind. 2 Gang looked at the 3 items on the stone table and walked to the side of the stone coffin. He carefully observed it for a while. The stone coffin belongs to me. The items on the stone table belong to you. 2 Gang said. Okay. Chu Mu didn't hesitate. Maybe there was some treasure in the stone coffin. Maybe it was just a corpse. Maybe there was nothing. Everything was possible. As for the 3 items on the stone table, they might have extraordinary value, or they might just be ordinary items. There was no way to be sure. The 2 of them didn't check the items before distributing them. This was also a type of luck. At the same time, it could be said that they were forthright. Chu Mu waved his hand and kept the 3 items. 2 Gang also moved and prepared to keep the stone coffin. Chapter 709. The sarcophagus shuddered and disappeared into 2 Gang's space ring. At the same time, Chu Mu had a bad premonition. Let's go. With a low roar, his figure flashed as he charged out of the tomb. The tomb was not very large. They were only around 10 meters away from the entrance, so it would only take a moment for them to rush out of the tomb. 2 figures flashed, and with a bang, Chu Mu and Tu Gang's bodies slammed into a flexible wall. It was as if an extremely tough membrane had been dented by them, but the more it was dented, the tougher it became, and the more powerful the rebound force was. With two bangs, the two figures were rebounded, and they shot towards the walls of the tomb at an even faster speed. With two bangs, the protective astral swords shattered, and Chu Mu and Tu Gang slammed into the hard walls at almost the same time. The terrifying impact caused their bodies to shake, their organs to shake, and their blood to tremble. Even their bones creaked as if they were about to shatter. The two of them fell at the same time, unable to move for a moment. They only felt that their minds were in chaos, and their consciousness was in chaos. They could not concentrate, and their bodies were powerless. Only intense pain spread throughout their bodies. After several dozen breaths, the two of them finally regained consciousness. They sucked in a breath of cold air. Even the slightest movement of their bodies caused them to feel a tearing pain. When they did not move, they felt numb all over. That kind of collision had been terrifyingly powerful. Even now, their internal organs had been injured, and their muscles and bones had been injured. After a long while, the two of them barely managed to get up. They took out pills and used the power of the pills to heal their injuries. Seal. As the pills healed their injuries, Chu Mu and Tu Gang stared at the entrance of the tomb and the flickering light. Their faces changed as they called out in unison. Unexpectedly, it was completely unexpected. No one had expected that there would be another seal. Thinking back carefully, Chu Mu and Tu Gang could not help but look at each other, and Tu Gang even revealed a bitter smile. Perhaps the appearance of the seal had something to do with him taking away the sarcophagus. If he had not taken away the sarcophagus, perhaps the seal would not have appeared, and they could have left the tomb. "Recover and prepare to break the seal," Chu Mu said. The two of them sat cross-legged, closed their eyes and adjusted their breathing, recovering their injuries and strength. It didn't take long for his injuries to heal, and his strength to return to normal. Chu Mu and Tu Gang worked together to attack the seal. Just like before, two streaks of sword light bombarded the same spot at the same time. 8 consecutive explosions occurred, but the seal was still intact. Chu Mu and Tu Gang's faces suddenly turned ugly. The strength of this seal was far greater than the previous seal. With their attack power, it was difficult for them to even shake it. Thinking of this, the two of them didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Wasn't it just opening a tomb to take some things? To actually encounter such a situation, wasn't this considered bad luck? What do we do now? Tu Gang was at a loss. It wouldn't be a problem for them to be trapped here for months or even years. After all, they could go without food for quite a long time. Even if they were really hungry, they still had some food stored in their spatial rings. It wouldn't be difficult for them to survive. Of course, if they were really trapped here for a few years with their talent, they would be able to raise their strength to an astonishing level and then break through the seal. However, a few years was too long for geniuses like them. By the time they left this place, they would probably be left behind by other geniuses. After all, there weren't many cultivation resources here. Moreover, Chu Mu and Tu Gang didn't plan to stay here for a few years. They weren't even willing to stay for a few months. However, their current attack power wasn't enough to break through the seal. The difference was still too great. If I can refine my sword intent and profound to the 7th revolution, I might be able to shake the seal and even break it. Chu Mu thought to himself. If I break through to the divine condensation realm, with my attack power, I can definitely break through this seal. Tu Gang said, "Unfortunately, I don't want to break through to the divine condensation realm so quickly. Moreover, the environment here isn't suitable. Let's recover our strength first," Chu Mu said. The 8 consecutive explosions just now had consumed a lot of his strength. After a period of time, his strength recovered. Chu Mu took out the 3 items he obtained. A piece of jade and 2 gourds. He first opened the gourds to check. As expected, there were indeed pills inside the gourds. Moreover, they were sword-intent pills and profound pills. However, compared to the burning blood sword of Gojoseon's collection, they were slightly inferior. They were 5 revolution sword-intent pills and 5 revolution profound pills. On the other hand, the number of 5 revolution sword-intent pills and 5 revolution profound pills in each gourd was as high as 300. This was a huge fortune. Even if it was useless to him, it could be used on the battle team to make the battle team stronger. Putting away the 2 gourds, Chu Mu began to check the crystal-clear jade. There were many fine lines on the jade. It looked very complicated. Those who didn't have a strong enough mental strength would feel dizzy. Chu Mu's mental strength was very strong. Therefore, he didn't feel dizzy. However, as he looked at it, a trace of seriousness appeared between his brows. The complexity of the lines on the jade was beyond his imagination. Tu Gang saw that Chu Mu was staring at the jade and also looked over. However, as he looked, he felt a faint dizziness for no reason. He quickly retracted his gaze. He didn't want to disturb Chu Mu. Instead, he stared at the seal, thinking about how to break the seal and leave this place. Using his mental strength, Chu Mu gradually discerned the complicated lines. At the same time, Chu Mu's mental strength was also rapidly depleted. An hour later, Chu Mu was able to clearly see all the veined patterns on the jade stone. In his mental world, all the veined patterns on the jade stone were displayed. In an instant, the jade trembled and a strong suction force appeared from within. In an instant, Chu Mu's mental strength was sucked into the jade. Chu Mu only felt his consciousness turn upside down and spin. Then, he arrived in a dark void. Bits of light lit up. They looked like lines of strange ancient words. It was extremely mysterious. The entire dark void was filled with these strange and mysterious lines. While Chu Mu was still in shock, the glowing lines moved one after another and rushed towards Chu Mu's consciousness like moths to a flame. In an instant, Chu Mu felt a huge flood of information rush into his consciousness. It filled his consciousness and flooded into his brain. This flood of information was extremely huge. Under the continuous impact, Chu Mu felt as if his brain was about to burst open. 15 minutes. Chu Mu received the huge flood of information for a full 15 minutes. It felt as long as 10 years, causing his thoughts to almost freeze and his brain to become stiff. By the time the flood of information ended and another 15 minutes had passed, Chu Mu's thoughts started to operate again, and his consciousness gradually recovered. How terrifying! Chu Mu could not help but feel a lingering fear. If his mental conception was not strong enough, if his spiritual world was not firm enough, if his soul was not strong enough, under the impact of the information torrent just now, he would have collapsed. Even if he did not die, he would have become an idiot. Fortunately, his soul was strong enough to resist the impact of the flood of information. This was the biggest flood of information Chu Mu had ever encountered so far. Even now, he still felt as if his head was stuffed with a big rock. After resting for a while, Chu Mu closed his eyes until the swelling in his head subsided a lot. He read the flood of information in his mind. Seal. Chu Mu read the 2 words first. As Chu Mu read on quickly, he did not know whether to laugh or cry. The jade was an inheritance stone, and the flood of information was the content of the inheritance. It was the complete path of sealing. Chu Mu had never thought of studying sealing because he did not have enough time. Now, he had obtained the inheritance of sealing, and it was a rather complete one. At the very least, it was a sealing inheritance that started from the most basic entry level to the Grandmaster level. Talented people would have to spend a lot of time learning sealing from the entry level. However, if one obtained a complete inheritance, one only needed to study it bit by bit according to the inheritance's records, and the efficiency would increase by 10 times or even dozens of times. The information was very clear that to learn sealing, one must first have an extraordinary soul. In other words, one needed to have a soul talent, and the stronger the soul, the better. This was because the execution of sealing required the guidance of one's soul power, which was one's mental strength. Therefore, a sealing master's mental strength was often stronger than an ordinary person's. However, in this realm, there were very few people as strong as Chu Mu. The flow of information in his mind was very complicated. For a moment, Chu Mu was unable to finish reading it. He stopped reading, opened his eyes, and looked at the seal in front of him, and pondered. With my comprehension ability and the inheritance I obtained, I should be able to grasp the majority of the sealing inheritance in a short time. Chu Mu could not help but think to himself. It was impossible to break the seal with a tyrannical attack now. Even after half a year, it would still be impossible. Chu Mu was very clear about this point. This was because the seventh hand seal of the 9 Revolution Heavenly Shocking Seal had not been studied yet. It would take more than a month to study it and refine the sword intent. Under such circumstances, it would take at least half a year. After that, it would also take at least half a year to refine the sword intent. All in all, it would take more than a year to reach the 7th revolution of the sword intent profound. He did not have the 7th revolution sword intent pill or the 7th revolution profound pill. 3 months. I'll use all my time to study the sealing path. I must have the ability to break this seal within 3 months. Chu Mu thought to himself. Since he had made his decision, he would not hesitate. He closed his eyes again and began to study the sealing inheritance he obtained. As for Tu Gang, he stared at the seal for a long time without any results. He then looked at Chu Mu and closed his eyes to cultivate. Since he could not get out for the time being, he would cultivate properly. He would get out sooner or later. Chapter 710. The Tao of Sealing contained the mysteries of heaven and earth. All sorts of laws were contained within it. The Tao of Sealing was broad, profound, and unfathomable. After making up his mind, Chu Mu gave up on cultivating. He focused all his attention and time on learning about sealing. If he didn't have any guidance, learning about sealing by himself wouldn't be easy. That was because in order to learn about sealing, one had to have a comprehensive understanding of the foundation of sealing. What was sealing? To put it simply, the combination of seal and restriction was the same as a restriction. It sounded simple, but it was extremely complex and profound. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to understand it. If Chu Mu hadn't obtained the Jade Stone's inheritance, he would have had to spend at least a few months to grasp the basics of sealing. However, it was different with the complete inheritance. The explanation of the basics of sealing was extremely clear and detailed. With Chu Mu's comprehension ability, he only needed to read it once to understand what sealing was. Of course, that was just understanding. If he wanted to fully understand it, he would still need some time to study it. Chu Mu was immersed in the sea of sealing knowledge. He was like a huge sponge, constantly absorbing the sealing knowledge and turning it into his own. Seals could be divided into several subsystems. Offensive-type seals, defensive-type seals, counter-type seals, binding-type seals, and auxiliary-type seals. Each subsystem of sealing contained all sorts of mysteries. It could be said that the majority of sealing masters in the immemorial era only focused on one type of sealing. The other types of sealing were just auxiliary. They wouldn't spend too much time studying them because a person's time and energy were limited. Of course, there were also some geniuses who could focus on 2 or 3 types of sealing. Chu Mu first studied the basics of sealing. Once he had a more direct understanding of sealing, he began to think about sealing. Previously, when he and Tu Gang had collided with the sealing, they had been bounced back. They hadn't been attacked. That meant that it wasn't an offensive sealing. After analyzing it, Chu Mu felt that the sealing should be a defensive sealing. Therefore, he had to focus on the study of defensive seals. The release of the seal required hand gestures. Using the hand gestures, one's mind would be drawn, and the power of heaven and earth would be drawn to condense the seal talismans. One by one, the seal talismans would be arranged according to a certain pattern. They would resonate with each other, communicate with each other, and connect with each other. In the end, they would form a complete seal. There were a total of 64 defensive sealing hand seals. In other words, Chu Mu had to first master these 64 hand seals, and even turn them into instincts. Then, he would delve into the method of condensing defensive sealing talismans. After carefully studying the 64 defensive type hand seals, Chu Mu began cultivating. The formation of the handprint was initially completed through the hand. If he wanted to cultivate, he naturally had to use his hands to cultivate. Thus, Chu Mu stretched out both of his hands, his 10 fingers moving as he began to form hand seals. Chu Mu's powerful mind and extreme control over his strength allowed him to reach an astonishing level of control over his own body. With just a thought, his body immediately reacted, reaching the realm of mind and body synchronization. Among the 64 defensive type hand seals, the first one was the simplest, and the difficulty increased accordingly. When it reached the 64th one, the difficulty increased by dozens of times. In the beginning, Chu Mu could easily condense the hand seals, but as time went on, the speed of condensing the hand seals became slower and slower, and the chances of making mistakes became higher and higher. Tu Gang ended his cultivation and opened his eyes to look at Chu Mu. He happened to see Chu Mu's hands forming hand seals, and he was stunned. What is he doing? Tu Gang was puzzled. Is he cultivating? Is he tempering his sword intent or profound? But that doesn't look like the 9 turns heart seal technique. The 9 turns heart seal technique's hand seals were fixed. Even if it was an advanced cultivation method that used the 9 turns heart seal technique as a foundation, the hand seals would have the shadow of the 9 turns heart seal technique's hand seals, and could be recognized. However, the hand seals that Chu Mu condensed at this time did not have the slightest shadow of the 9 turns heart seal technique's hand seals. Could it be? Tu Gang's eyes widened, and he stared at Chu Mu in a daze. For a moment, he felt a little dizzy. Chu Mu did not know what Tu Gang was thinking. He was immersed in the cultivation of the defensive hand seals. There was no shortcut in the cultivation of the hand seals. It relied on condensing the hand seals over and over again, gradually going from being unfamiliar to being proficient to being proficient to being completely mastered, until it became instinct. Of course, talented people would master it faster. Chu Mu was a talented person, and he was a very talented person. After a day, the originally unfamiliar hand seals were gradually mastered. After 3 days, each of the 64 hand seals could be condensed successfully within a breath, and the accuracy was as high as 80%. But this was not enough. Either do not do it or do it to the best. This had always been Chu Mu's principle. Therefore, he continued to cultivate the hand seals. Sharpening the knife would not delay the work of cutting firewood. Cultivating the hand seals was the process of sharpening the knife. Striving for perfection, Chu Mu tirelessly repeated the cultivation of the hand seals. He was cultivating almost all the time. This kind of cultivation was undoubtedly very boring, and ordinary people would not be able to endure it. With monstrous perception and incomparable control, Chu Mu's mastery of the hand seals rapidly deepened. On the 5th day, Chu Mu's speed of condensing hand seals increased again. He could condense 2 hand seals in a breath. This speed had not reached the limit, and there was still room for improvement. On the 10th day, Chu Mu's speed of condensing hand seals increased to 3 hand seals in a breath. I've reached the limit. It's time to study the defensive seals. Chu Mu muttered to himself. He began to read the contents of the defensive seals, and carefully comprehended them. Sealing masters were divided into sealing apprentice, sealing master, sealing master, sealing grandmaster, and grand sealing grandmaster. Of course, there were even higher realms above grand sealing grandmaster. However, Chu Mu's inheritance did not contain them. The highest realm was merely Grand Grandmaster. In theory, Grand Grandmaster was equivalent to the sword of Gojoseon. However, sealing masters were relatively rare. Therefore, in the clan, their status was higher than the sword of Gojoseon. After familiarizing himself with the 64 defensive type hand seals, he could be considered to have reached the standard of a defensive type sealing apprentice. Next, he began to research defensive type seals. As Chu Mu researched, he took the seals in front of him as his target, combining practice with theory to better improve. 10 days later, Chu Mu reached the entry level of a sealing apprentice. However, this was only the beginning. Becoming an apprentice was the entry level. With a clear understanding of seals, Chu Mu felt as if he was riding a flying battleship. His speed was extremely fast, and he continued to improve and deepen. Another 10 days passed. Chu Mu's attainments in the defensive seals had reached the level of a sealing master. His improvement was ferocious. In another 10 days, he broke through another realm and reached the level of a sealing master. If other sealing masters were to know about this speed of improvement, they would probably be so shocked that they would lose their sense of direction. They would all kneel and beg Chu Mu to tell them how to improve quickly. So far, only 40 days had passed since he started to study seals. Chu Mu had reached the level of a sealing master. This seal that trapped him and Tu Gang had already surpassed the Grandmaster level and reached the Grandmaster level. It was extremely complicated and profound. It was also an excellent target for Chu Mu to study. Learning seals not only required theoretical knowledge, but also sufficient practical experience. Only then could one become a qualified or even an outstanding sealing master. Tu Gang sat down and did his own thing. He kept cultivating and finally confirmed that Chu Mu was indeed researching seals. In the blink of an eye, 20 days had passed. Chu Mu's attainments in Sealing Mountain had once again increased by a large realm, reaching the level of Sealing Grandmaster. This level was something that other sealing masters would need a few years or even a dozen years to reach. Chu Mu had given himself a deadline of 3 months. In total, he had 90 days. Now that 60 days had passed, there was still a month left. He had to reach the level of a sealing grandmaster. Now that he had reached the level of a sealing grandmaster, he could more or less understand the seals that trapped them. Chu Mu discovered that they were not purely defensive seals. There was also a small portion of a counterattack seal. It was just that the counterattack seal's power was not strong. The situation was unexpected. Chu Mu could only learn the counterattack seal. Just like the defensive seal, there were 64 seals. With the foundation of the defensive seal, it was much easier to learn the counterattack seal. In just 5 days, he had mastered the 64 counterattack seal. Cultivate, research, improve. This was a combination of a defensive type and a counterattack type seal that had reached the Great Master level. Chu Mu's difficulty in breaking the seal had increased again. He knew that in 3 months, he wouldn't be able to break the seal. First, he had to raise the defensive seal and counterattack seal to the Grandmaster level. Then, he had to combine the two seals to break them. In the 4th month, Chu Mu let out a sigh of relief. His defensive seal had finally reached the Grandmaster level. As for the counterattack seal, it had also reached the Grandmaster level. The next step was to figure out how to combine the defensive seals with the counterattack seals. Different types of seals had different effects. In order to combine them, he had to find the point of convergence between the two. This required a high level of attainment. Chu Mu worked hard to study the seals that trapped them. He advanced in reverse and combined it with his own understanding, deepening it step by step. Tu Gang did not disturb Chu Mu. He could feel that Chu Mu was working hard to study the seals. Whether or not they could break the seals depended on Chu Mu. Otherwise, they would have to wait a few years. That was not the result he wanted. Another month had passed. Calculating the time, Chu Mu and Tu Gang had been trapped here for 5 months. On this day, Chu Mu's face was filled with joy because he had successfully fused the defensive type seal and the counterattack type seal. Although it was only a preliminary fusion, he felt that it was enough to break through the seal in front of him. Chapter 7:11. I'm going to break the seal. Chu Mu glanced at Tu Gang and said. Tu Gang's eyes lit up. He stood up and stared at Chu Mu. Then, he looked at the seal in front of him and asked, "What do you need me to do?" "Wait," Chu Mu said and began to break the seal. He focused all his attention on the seal in front of him and began to study it. He had already studied this seal for a few months. Although it was a practical object for him to study seals, Chu Mu was very familiar with it. Now that he was focused on studying how to break it, the difficulty wasn't as great as he had imagined. Die! With a shout, the huge sword slashed down from above. It was so powerful that it seemed to split a mountain. With a scream, the immemorial beast died under the huge sword. Qin Shanhe quickly scanned his surroundings. Other than himself, there was nothing else alive. He then looked at the temporary battle record sword token at his waist. The battle record on it had reached 86 points. When he first entered the Crimson Wasteland, he had 30 battle points. During this period of time, he had continuously hunted and gained 56 battle points. Although his speed was not fast, it was safe. Where did the captain go? Qin Shanhe thought as he skinned the primordial ferocious beast. A few months ago, after Chu Mu gave him 10 rank 6 sword essence pills and 10 rank 6 mystery pills, he came to the Crimson Wasteland alone to hunt. Qin Shanhe thought that with Chu Mu's rank 6 sword essence and rank 6 mystery pills, as long as he was careful, he could definitely protect himself. A few months later, through his own efforts, Qin Shanhe had refined his sword intent and profound of earth to the 5th revolution. Although he hadn't reached the limit of what his soul could bear, it would take far too much time for him to reach the 6th revolution. He couldn't do it in a short amount of time. After reaching the 5th transition, his strength had greatly increased. Among the elite disciples, a 5th transition's strength was already at the upper level. Even if he was placed in the 3 super battle teams, he would have the qualifications to become a core battle team member. Hence, Qin Shanhe entered Sky Peak Valley and Crimson Wasteland alone. His main goal was to find Chu Mu. His secondary goal was to hunt and earn battle points. However, after more than 10 days, he did not find Chu Mu at all. The Crimson Wasteland was very large. Trying to find a person here was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Unknowingly, Qin Shanhe had gone deeper into the Crimson Wasteland. He was getting closer and closer to the center of the Crimson Wasteland. Qin Shanhe firmly believed that Chu Mu would not die. It was just that they did not know where he was. A voice rang out. Qin Shanhe quickly turned around and saw 10 silhouettes appearing in the distance and rapidly approaching them. Qin Shanhe narrowed his eyes and took a deep look. His expression changed slightly as he hurriedly used his movement technique to flee. He saw that the leader of the 10 figures was none other than Nangong Jie, the captain of one of the Demon Slayer Squad's 3 core squads, who had suffered at the hands of Chu Mu in Sky Peak Valley. Qin Shanhe knew that Nangong Jie was not a kind person. He would definitely take revenge. That day, Qin Shanhe had been humiliated by Chu Mu in terms of his words and aura. He would definitely bear a grudge. Qin Shanhe was in cahoots with Chu Mu, so Nangong Jie would definitely not treat him kindly. Chase. Nangong Jie also saw Qin Shanhe. With a wave of his hand, the 10 people increased their speed and quickly caught up. Nangong Jie himself had rank 6 strength, and his 9 subordinates were at least rank 5. All of them had gone through many life and death battles and were extremely terrifying. They increased their speed and chased after Qin Shanhe with all their might. Qin Shanhe had comprehended the profundity of earth, so he did not have an advantage in terms of speed. Moreover, his sword intent and profundity had only reached rank 5, so there was still a gap between him and these people. Gritting his teeth, Qin Shanhe unleashed all of his strength and ran as fast as he could. However, Nangong Jie and the others were still chasing after him, and the distance between them was getting shorter and shorter. At this rate, Qin Shanhe would be caught up soon. However, he could not defeat them with his strength. Once they caught up to him, the consequences would be unpredictable. In short, it would not be a good ending. After running for 15 minutes and maintaining his full strength, Qin Shanhe started to feel tired, especially when he was under great pressure from the powerful pursuers. "You won't be able to escape." Nangong Jie's voice sounded with a hint of mockery. "Where is Chu Mu? Is he already dead?" Nangong Jie asked again. Suddenly, he thought of something and his expression changed. "How did your strength increase so much?" It had been less than a year since the last time. At that time, Qin Shanhe only had rank 2 sword intent and profundity. But now, although he did not know how many ranks his sword intent and profundity had reached, he could run for such a long time while being chased by his team. It was definitely not lower than rank 4. In less than a year, he had raised his sword intent and profundity by at least 2 ranks. This was something that was almost impossible, but it actually happened. There were only 2 possibilities. Either Qin Shanhe's talent had already reached a heaven-defying level, or he had encountered some great fortuitous encounter. Nangong Jie eliminated the first possibility, so there was only the second one left. Did he find a cultivation sacred ground with amazing effects? Or did he obtain a pill that could assist in tempering? Nangong Jie thought to himself. Qin Shanhe was still unable to escape. He was caught. Nangong Jie waved his hand and the team members immediately spread out, forming a circle and surrounding Qin Shanhe. Qin Shanhe held the giant sword with both hands. Sword energy surged in his body, and a strong aura surrounded him. The air crackled. He was ready to fight for his life. "You want to fight for your life? You're still not strong enough." Nangong Jie laughed coldly. "Put down your sword and surrender obediently. Then I can spare your life." Nangong Jie's plan was simple. He wanted to capture Qin Shanhe alive and force him to tell him how his strength had increased so quickly. If possible, his own strength could also increase rapidly and become stronger. In an instant, Nangong Jie drew his sword. Sword light split at an unbelievable speed. Qin Shanhe did not even have time to react. He only felt a tearing pain in his arms and shoulders. He could barely hold the giant sword. In an instant 2 more sword light pierced Qin Shanhe's thigh. The wound did not bleed much, but it made Qin Shanhe feel powerless. Nangong Jie's sword attack was very measured. It was equivalent to crippling Qin Shanhe. He could barely move normally, but he could not escape or fight back. At this moment, Qin Shanhe was like a piece of meat on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. "You're called Qin Shanhe, right? Where's Chu Mu? Where did he go? Or is he dead?" Nangong Jie sheathed his sword and stared at Qin Shanhe with a faint smile. Qin Shanhe glared at Nangong Jie. He barely held the giant sword and did not say a word. "It's okay. If he's not dead, I believe I'll meet him. Then, I'll let you 2 reunite." Nangong Jie ignored Qin Shanhe's anger and laughed coldly. In his eyes, Qin Shanhe was not his opponent at all. He was like an ant. He did not need to care about the anger of an ant. "Take him away." Nangong Jie waved his hand and someone immediately lifted Qin Shanhe up. Qin Shanhe was furious, but there was nothing he could do. With his strength, he was not a match for Nangong Jie even when he was at his peak. Now that he was injured, he could not help but feel sad. Xiao Chen could not help but feel somewhat sorrowful in his heart. Traces of despair slowly spread from nothing to his heart. At this moment, a soft sound was heard. It was carried by the wind. Everyone turned around and saw a vigorous figure appear in the distance. It was approaching at an astonishing speed. The sound was the footsteps of that figure. "It's an immemorial beast!" One of Nangong Jie's team members shouted. "There's someone up there." Nangong Jie was slightly startled but did not think much of it. Although there were not many people or foreign races who had immemorial beasts as mounts, there were still some. See if it's a human, Nangong Jie said again. At this moment, the immemorial beast was getting closer and closer. Gradually they could see it clearly. It's so small. Everyone frowned. Everyone knew that under normal circumstances, the strength of an immemorial beast was proportional to its size. In other words, the stronger the immemorial beast, the larger its body. With such a small body, this beast's strength was probably not very strong. The rider riding this weak beast was probably not very strong either. This was a beast with the appearance of a dragon. In reality, it was not an immemorial beast but a savage beast. A unique savage beast that had undergone many bloodline mutations. This savage beast had a name. It was Bawang. It came from the ancient wild realm of the ancient sword continent. Since that was the case, the identity of the person riding on its back was obvious. Chu Mu. Qin Shanhe was overjoyed, then shocked. Nangong Jie and the others were overjoyed. I didn't think that I would meet you here, Nangong Jie said. There was an indescribable joy in his heart. Let him go. Sitting on Bawang's back, Chu Mu looked down at Nangong Jie and said indifferently. His tone was neither cold nor warm. Coupled with his indifferent gaze, for some reason, Nangong Jie felt a chill in his heart. Leader, let's go. Qin Shanhe roared. The core team of the 3 super battle teams was too strong. He felt that Chu Mu was no match for them. Let's go. Let's see where you can escape to. Nangong Jie suppressed the chill in his heart and sneered. With a wave of his hand, 2 team members instantly turned into light and flew towards Chu Mu. They both drew their swords. Chu Mu sat on Bawang's back without moving. When the 2 figures got close, he moved his right hand. Nangong Jie's pupils shrank. 2 blurry sword light bloomed and disappeared. Immediately after, the 2 figures flew past Chu Mu's left and right. They fell to the ground and slid forward. Fresh blood flowed out and dyed the ground red. The 2 team members died instantly. You deserve to die. Nangong Jie was furious. The other team members were also furious. They instantly attacked. Terrifying sword light, carrying shocking killing intent, locked onto Chu Mu and shot towards him like shooting stars. Chu Mu leaped into the air. Bawang quickly moved to the side. Immediately after, Chu Mu spun in the air. The 8-sided desolate sky sword came out of its sheath and stabbed downwards. His body followed the sword. The sword light flashed a few times. Finally, Chu Mu and Nangong Jie collided. Chapter 7:12. The 2 silhouettes collided like comets, exploding with a shocking amount of energy. In an instant, everything around them was blown away. Qin Shanhe and the core members of the Demon Slayer battle team were all sent flying hundreds of meters away. The terrifying collision caused the dark brown ground to shatter and become riddled with holes. Countless sparks flew everywhere, each one containing a terrifying amount of energy that pierced through the void. The 2 silhouettes flew back. In midair, their eyes met. Sharp light shot out like swords. They couldn't help but feel surprised. After fighting many times, Chu Mu understood his own strength. He was surprised that Nangong Jie could block his attack. Chu Mu was only surprised, but Nangong Jie was in disbelief. Chu Mu was merely a newly promoted elite disciple. In less than a year, he had grown from an ant to someone who had the strength to contend against him. Fortuitous encounter. They must have had a great fortuitous encounter. Nangong Jie's heart trembled with excitement. This fortuitous encounter must be mine. Thinking of this, Nangong Jie's eyes flashed with viciousness. He landed on the ground and with a boom, his speed exploded. He charged at Chu Mu with unparalleled speed, his sword light shooting towards him. Chu Mu's figure paused. Like a feather, he blew forward like a breeze. Without a sound, he slashed out with his sword. Violent and gentle, 2 completely different yet contrasting forces collided once again. This time, Chu Mu wasn't pushed back. Nangong Jie's sword rained down like a storm. Chu Mu's figure was like a ghost, moving with the wind. He circled around Nangong Jie's body in an arc. As he spun, he flew back like a swallow. His sword slashed out again, cutting into Nangong Jie's blind spot. Nangong Jie's reaction was extremely fast. With a twist of his head, he dodged Chu Mu's attack. Unexpectedly, Chu Mu's sword changed direction again. Following the momentum, he slashed down vertically. His strength exploded and his speed increased tenfold. Nangong Jie's pupils contracted. Almost instinctively, he raised his sword and used all his strength to slash at Chu Mu's neck. He wanted to die together with him. Ruthless, extremely ruthless. This was Nangong Jie. If Chu Mu persisted with this strike, he might be able to kill Nangong Jie. However, at the same time, he would also be attacked. There was a high possibility that his neck would be severed and he would die. However, Chu Mu's sword didn't change and continued to slash down. Nangong Jie was still in shock. He gritted his teeth and used a secret technique. The arm holding the sword suddenly swelled up in exchange for a violent power. In an instant, the sword's speed increased by 50%. Nangong Jie was confident that he would be able to kill Chu Mu with this strike before Chu Mu's sword struck him. As for the fortuitous encounter, he didn't have time to think about it in this life-and-death situation. With a clang, Nangong Jie's eyes bulged. His sword had been blocked. He didn't know when, but a sword had appeared in Chu Mu's left hand, blocking his sword firmly. "Wait!" Nangong Jie was shocked. He hurriedly opened his mouth to speak. However, before he could say anything, Chu Mu's sword slashed down and split Nangong Jie's head open. He couldn't be more dead. Only his eyes bulged out, filled with shock and disbelief. In just a few short exchanges, one of the 3 core teams of the Demon Slayer battle team had been completely annihilated. Murderer, Chu Mu. Like a serial killer, Chu Mu skillfully removed the swords, interspatial rings, and other items from Nangong Jie and the other team members. Then, he let Bawang devour their corpses. After eating the corpses of 10 powerful swordsmen, Bawang burped. The blood in his body churned and his aura surged. He became even more powerful. The stronger the swordsman, the more powerful the energy in his body. After being eaten by Bawang, the energy in his body was extracted and absorbed to strengthen himself. Eating the corpses was more thorough than destroying the corpses. At the very least, he wouldn't be able to find any clues. Qin Shanha stood up with difficulty and spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. He took out a pill and ate it to heal his injuries. Chu Mu kept Bawang in his beast space. Then, he continuously attacked with his sword, destroying the surrounding terrain and all kinds of traces, creating signs of a chaotic battle. Then, he leaped and flew away. He grabbed Qin Shanha's arm and quickly left, leaving behind only the devastated ground. "I knew it. Captain wouldn't die so easily." Qin Shanha looked at Chu Mu and smiled. The wounds on his shoulders and legs had basically healed. His internal injuries were almost healed as well. "I met with some things," Chu Mu said. He didn't go into details. That day, after he broke through the seal, he left the stone tomb with 2 gang. Because they were trapped for 5 months, 2 gang only said that they would meet again if fate brought them together. Chu Mu naturally had to return to Sky Peak Valley. When leaving the stone tomb, Chu Mu thought of the mutated wild beast Bawang that he kept in his beast space and summoned it. Previously, he didn't summon it because he was cultivating and improving himself every day in the Sword Palace. There was no need. Now, his strength had reached a certain level. The beast space was a special space. In it, Bawang wouldn't die. Instead, it would fall into a deep sleep and grow little by little in its sleep. Therefore, Bawang that was summoned by Chu Mu had grown to the level of a first transformation swordsman. This wasn't enough. It was far from enough. Chu Mu decided that he would try his best to improve Bawang's strength in the next period of time. 5th transformation sword essence and 5th transformation profound meaning. Not bad. When Chu Mu knew about Qin Shanha's progress, he smiled. Now, Qin Shanhe barely had the strength to fight side by side with him. I have 86 battle points now. Captain, how many do you have? Qin Shanhe asked. 890 points, Chu Mu said. 890 points. Qin Shanhe exclaimed. While he was shocked, he revealed a hint of excitement. Our battle points added together are close to 1,000 points. If we hunt some more primordial beasts, we'll be able to reach 1,000 points. At that time, our Gentian battle team will be officially established. What big events have happened in the past few months? Chu Mu asked. In the past 5 months, he was trapped in a stone tomb and focused on studying seals. He raised the defense and counterattack seals to the beginner level of the Great Grandmaster. He also raised the fusion of the 2 seals to the beginner level. He didn't know anything about the outside world. There are a few things. A slayer appeared in the Crimson Wasteland. All the targets were killed with 1 slash. However, there has been no news for a few months. Qin Shanhe glanced at Chu Mu and said, also, one of the 12 first-rate battle teams, the Red Flame battle team, was annihilated. The one who killed them was a genius from the underworld god clan called Ming Xiu. Third, Xikong Zhan's battle team was officially established a month ago. It's called the Stardust Battle Team. Oh, Xikong Zhan's battle team is officially established. It's called the Stardust Battle Team. Chu Mu repeated with a faint smile on his face. Ever since Xikong Zhan proposed the battle, there had been no news of him. He didn't expect that when there was news, it would be the official establishment of his battle team. If they were competing to establish a battle team first, then Chu Mu would have already lost. However, they were competing to surpass the 3 super battle teams first. In that case, establishing an official battle team was just the beginning. The 3 super battle teams had a long history, a deep foundation, powerful strength, and many experts. It wasn't impossible to surpass the 3 super battle teams, but it was very difficult. Even if one could surpass them, it would take a lot of time. Do you have any information on the Stardust Battle Team? Chu Mu asked. The Stardust Battle Team's captain is Xikong Zhan. Aside from him, there is also a vice-captain and 3 other members, Qin Shanhe said. This wasn't considered a secret. One could easily find out by asking around. They have more members than us. Chu Mu smiled. Captain, it won't be easy to surpass the 3 super battle teams, Qin Shanhe said. Qin Shanhe said, based on the current situation, it's almost impossible for us to recruit a large number of members. I never wanted to recruit too many members. Chu Mu said calmly. Then, what do you plan to do? Qin Shanhe was stunned. Walk the path of elites. Chu Mu smiled and said, our Gentian battle team doesn't need too many members. At most, 10 members will be enough. Moreover, every one of them must be a true elite. What I want is not a battle team with a large number of members, but a battle team made up of true elites. What matters is quality, not quantity. Chu Mu's words made Qin Shanhe fall into deep thought. After careful analysis, he realized that Chu Mu's words made a lot of sense. Walk the path of elites, and not the development method of other battle teams. Although the stronger a battle team, the more members and experts there was no rule that said that the ranking of a battle team required numbers and strength. As long as one's strength met the requirements, it would be fine. In the current Sky Edge Sword Palace, the majority of the elite disciples of the unrated battle teams had average talent. If they were recruited into the battle team, they might drag the battle team down if they wanted to develop it. If that was the case, it would be better to follow what Chu Mu said. They only wanted true elite. Although true elites were hard to find, once they were obtained, they only needed to be nurtured slightly to form a true fighting force, allowing the battle team to quickly grow stronger. Since we are on the path of creating a battle team, I will develop the battle team into the strongest battle team, Chu Mu said calmly. His tone had an unquestionable dominance, as if he was looking down on the world. After a period of time, Chu Mu summoned Bawang. After devouring the corpses of the core members of the Demon Slayer battle team, Bawang's aura had become stronger and stronger. His strength had increased significantly, and he had reached the level of a second transition swordsman. Let's go. Continue to hunt and earn more battle points, Chumu said as he got up. At the same time, he glanced at Bawang. He thought to himself that he should also let Bawang devour more corpses to gain more strength and become stronger. Let's go, Qin Shanha said excitedly. 1,000 battle points were almost reached. Their battle team was about to be established, and they would complete the first goal. As for him, he would become one of the founders of the battle team and personally participate in the creation of a battle team. The creation of a battle team with amazing potential, how could he not be excited? Chumu was also excited, but he was calmer than Qin Shanha. Chapter 7:13. The vast land was blood-red and boundless. Bawang, go! The voice rang out, followed by a desolate and domineering roar. Bawang's figure was extremely fast as lightning. It cut through the air, bringing with it a strong wind-breaking sound and a sharp whistle. Bawang's body was not huge, at least compared to the primordial beast. However, it was extremely fast and had a terrifying attack power. Its claws seemed to be able to tear through everything. The target in front was a lion-shaped primordial beast. It was more than 20 meters tall, and Bawang was like a tiny ant in front of it. In the blink of an eye, Bawang's strong legs kicked off, and its body leaped up. Its sharp claws instantly clawed out, leaving a few bright traces in the air. The primordial beast did not even have time to react before a few deep wounds appeared on its neck. Blood spurted out. Bawang was a wild beast that had mutated many times. It also had intelligence close to that of a human, and its fighting instincts were extremely terrifying. Moreover, it had been specially trained by Chumu. If Chumu only used the strength of a second transition swordsman, it would be very difficult for him to defeat Bawang. It would be almost impossible for him to kill it. The primordial beast's strength was equivalent to that of a second transition swordsman. Its huge body gave it tyrannical strength, and at the same time, its speed was not slow. However, compared to Bawang, it paled in comparison. Bawang's figure was not only fast but also agile. Using the primordial beast's body as a fulcrum, it rapidly attacked. Its sharp claws struck again and again, and the primordial beast's resistance was futile. Not long after, the primordial beast died. Bawang and Chumu had a contract. The battle points of the primordial beast it killed would be credited to Chumu. Therefore, there were 4 more battle points in Chumu's temporary battle record sword token. After the primordial beast died, Bawang broke open its body and drilled into its body, devouring its strength and essence. Otherwise, this beast would be too big. With Bawang's appetite, he wouldn't be able to eat it in a short time. Only the essence would be enough. Using battle to nurture battle, improving through battle and slaughter. Basically, Chumu would let Bawang fight whenever they encountered an immemorial beast that was at or below the third transition. He would directly temper Bawang's battle prowess and become stronger. He could also devour the beast's energy essence to strengthen himself. If they encountered rank 4 and above immemorial beasts, Qin Shanha would take action. If they encountered rank 6 immemorial beasts, Chumu would take action personally. Before long, the battle points on Chumu's temporary battle record sword token had reached 1072 points, while Qin Shanha's temporary battle record sword token had reached 168 points. Qin Shanha, whose sword intent had been refined to the 5th rank, had greatly increased his strength. Ordinary 5th rank immemorial beasts were not his match at all. They all became his battle points. Delightful gains. After continuous battles, whether it was one-on-one or in groups, and continuously devouring the beast's energy essence, Bawang's strength increased by leaps and bounds, reaching rank 3. However, the higher the rank, the harder it was to improve. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. The gains were huge. Bawang's strength had increased to rank 4. The battle points on Qin Shanha's temporary battle record sword token had increased to 354 points, while Chu Mu's had increased to 1580 points. Chu Mu and the rest were now at the center of the Crimson Wasteland. Today, they planned to return and promote Zhen Tian battle team to an official battle team. Suddenly, an extremely strong sense of danger surged in their hearts. The shadow of death loomed over them. In the distance, a blood-red light was extremely sharp. It tore through the sky and slashed towards them at a speed faster than the speed of sound. Along the way, a slender and straight gully was slashed open on the hard dark brown ground. Chu Mu, Qin Shanha, and Bawang turned around and saw the blood-red light slashing towards them. In an instant, the sky and earth disappeared. Only the blood-red light continued to expand in front of them, filling their eyes and occupying the entire world. The terrifying aura turned into invisible ropes that wrapped around their bodies. Their blood instantly froze and their muscles became numb. They lost the ability to move and became vegetative. They could only watch as the blood-red light approached them at a frightening speed. Even though they were hundreds of meters away, they could feel the sharpness that could tear everything apart. There was no doubt that it was a sword light that could kill everything. The will of the sharpness made Chu Mu, Qin Shanha, and Bawang feel as if their bodies were being torn apart. It went deep into their blood, bones, and souls. The pain was unbearable. Even their spiritual world seemed to be torn apart. Their consciousness was split, and they were about to fall into darkness and die forever. Just this sword alone was so powerful that it was unparalleled. This was the sword of a divine condensation realm swordsman. It was an attack that targeted spiritual consciousness. They didn't know why they would be attacked by a divine condensation realm swordsman. It was a sure kill attack. Facing the blood-red light, even their minds were about to freeze. They couldn't think normally. In an instant, it seemed as long as 100 years. The blood-red light had already reached within 100 meters. Death was coming. Chu Mu's spiritual consciousness was extremely powerful. His thoughts could still operate. His spiritual consciousness could still be activated. He unleashed his full power and roared in his heart. Burning blood transformation. In an instant, the blood essence that had been gathered in his body seemed to be burned by flames. It started to boil. Then, the temperature reached a critical point and the blood essence started to burn. Waves of extremely powerful energy surged out from the burning blood essence. It attacked his meridians and engulfed his entire body at an unimaginable speed. This wave of energy was extremely powerful. It was like a flood that broke through a dam. It could destroy everything. If it weren't for the fact that Chu Mu had cultivated the Sky Desolation sword body, which strengthened his body both inside and outside and made his meridians wide and incomparably tough, he would have long been destroyed by this flood of energy. Even so, Chu Mu still felt waves of pain from his meridians under the impact of this flood of energy. It was as if they were being torn apart. The pain in his meridians aroused Chu Mu's ferocious nature. It made his mind even more focused. The energy that emerged from the burning blood essence of the burning blood transformation filled his entire body. It even surged out of his body. It made the surface of Chu Mu's body turn a faint scarlet color like smoke. His pupils also turned from black to pale red. It was bewitching and evil. It was enough to make the hearts of many women waver. Strong. It was unprecedentedly strong. An extremely powerful energy surged in and out of his body. It made Chu Mu feel as if he could break the heavens with a single sword strike. It was as if there was nothing in the world that could block his attack. This was a state that was close to being possessed by a demon. It made one incomparably excited. Could even make one go crazy and lose themselves. Powerful energy required a strong mind to control. If one's mind wasn't strong enough, they would only lose themselves under the impact of the powerful energy. They would be immersed in the pleasure of the powerful energy and become a crazy demon. The powerful energy that came from the small success of the burning blood transformation was indeed very shocking. However, Chu Mu's mind was even stronger. In just an instant, he felt the pleasure of the explosion of energy. Soon after, he was able to control all the energy in his body. Everything was under his control. At this moment, the blood-red light was less than 50 meters away from Chu Mu. The execution of the burning blood transformation was completed in an instant. Xiao Qin grasped his sword and unsheathed it. He reached his limit and the sword light broke through the air. The golden light was dyed with a layer of blood red. It looked mysterious and demonic. Under the burning blood transformation, Chu Mu's sword light's attack power exceeded the limit. The extreme sword light collided with the blood-colored light, and the tyrannical power clashed. Unable to resist, it was fixed in place. The tyrannical power caused countless blood-colored sparks to fly out in all directions. The ground was pierced with holes, and it was riddled with holes. The extreme sword light was small and the blood-red light was huge. However, they resisted each other and were in a stalemate. With Chu Mu's extreme sword light blocking, Qin Shanhe and Bawang regained their ability to move. They consciously retreated far away. Against a divine condensation realm swordsman, they couldn't resist at all. They would be killed in an instant. Qin Shanhe quickly retreated while staring at Chu Mu. He was stunned when he saw the faint red smoke around Chu Mu's body. In the end, the extreme sword light was defeated by the blood-red light. However, the blood-red light had also used up a lot of its energy. It attacked once again. Chu Mu, who had become powerful, wasn't afraid of the pressure of the blood-red light anymore. His body flashed and he easily dodged. He turned into a blood-red light and rushed in the direction of the blood-red light. The power of the burning blood transformation increased Chu Mu's speed. He broke through the sound barrier and became a blood-red light. A figure appeared before him. Chu Mu's speed suddenly increased. The 8 sky desolate swords were placed in front of him. He slashed out and attacked along with his body. A mere origin realm swordsman. You think you can fight against me with a secret technique? That person was wearing a black and red robe. His face was pale and his eyes were red. He looked very evil. Seeing Chu Mu rush over and attack, he smiled disdainfully. He flicked his finger and in an instant, blood-red light shot out like swords. They filled the air and pierced through everything. It was as if he wanted to turn Chu Mu into a beehive. The slash of the sword seemed to have a magical power. All of the blood-colored edges were shattered by this slash. However, the accumulated power of this slash had already been destroyed. Chu Mu's figure flickered as he took the opportunity to stab forward. Very fast. What a genius! The evil path swordsman was slightly surprised. He didn't pay much attention to Chu Mu's sword. His left hand turned into a sword finger and pointed out. A shocking blood-red light condensed at the tip of his finger. It was extremely powerful. This finger contained a mysterious trajectory that made it impossible for Chu Mu's sword to dodge. It was instantly struck. The tip of the sword and the tip of the sword collided. The tyrannical force passed through the body of the sword and into his palm, causing Chu Mu's arm to shake. He hurriedly used a method to disperse the force, but his arm still felt waves of numbness. The terrifying sharpness pierced through his body and pierced his arm like countless needles. His power erupted. His wrist moved slightly, and the tip of his sword was like a phoenix's head. His sword reached the limit of the origin realm and instantly destroyed the blood-red light on his opponent's finger, forcing him back a step. Chapter 7:14. You're actually able to make me take a step back. The corrupt swordsman was slightly startled, but then a mysterious smile appeared on his face. Very good. You're a genius, a true genius. Killing a genius like you will give me a great sense of accomplishment. Your blood will definitely be very delicious. The evil aura grew even denser. This corrupt swordsman unsheathed his sword and brought out his true power. The swords the corrupt swordsman used were very similar. They were dark red and emitted a shocking bloodthirsty evil aura. With a sword in hand, the corrupt swordsman's aura became even more terrifying. Burning blood transformation was a secret technique that burned essence blood in exchange for powerful strength. It couldn't be sustained for long, so Chu Mu had to quickly kill this evil path sword artist. Otherwise, once burning blood transformation's duration was up, he would fall into a weakened state from burning too much essence blood. He wouldn't even be able to compare to a normal person. When that time came, he would become meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. He didn't hold back at all. The eight-sided heavenly desolate sword silently slashed out from an inconceivable angle toward the corrupt swordsman. The corrupt swordsman raised an eyebrow. He seemed to be unhurried as he slashed out with his sword, blocking Chu Mu's attack. In terms of sword arts cultivation, this corrupt swordsman might not be able to compare to Chu Mu. But because he had advanced to the deity condensation realm, his mental energy had transformed into divine sense. That was a mental energy that was even higher than mental energy. It allowed him to accurately sense his surroundings. Strictly speaking, a deity condensation realm swordsman's sword yuan was stronger than a origin realm swordsman's, but it wasn't ridiculously strong. The greatest difference between the deity condensation realm and the origin realm was in mental energy and divine sense. Even with Chu Mu's powerful mental energy, he was only barely able to block his opponent's divine sense. His body couldn't move at all. If he hadn't used the burning blood transformation, he wouldn't have had the slightest chance of resisting. Changing his sword stance, he bypassed his opponent's block and slashed out again, aiming for the corrupt swordsman's neck. The two of them changed their positions dozens of times in an instant, but the two swords did not clash even once. The power of the fifth layer's sword domain covered an area of 5 meters. It distorted the air within 5 meters, as well as the corrupt path's sword. However, this corrupt path's sword domain had also reached the peak of the fourth layer, close to the fifth layer. Adding on the fact that his cultivation base was clearly higher than Chu Mu's, he was able to contend against the fifth layer's sword domain. Metal Profound was released to the limit, Sword Intent was also released to the limit, the might of the sixth rank was not held back. In terms of Sword Intent and Profound, the evil swordsman was not as good as Chu Mu. He had only reached the fifth revolution. Quick, quick, quick! Chu Mu did his best to finish off his opponent before the burning blood transformation's duration ended. This corrupt sword artist had originally been planning on teasing Chu Mu a bit before killing him. But then he found that Chu Mu was growing stronger and stronger. His attacks were also growing faster and faster. If he wasn't careful, he might be injured. Therefore, he did not dare to be careless and had no choice but to use his strength to deal with Chu Mu. The speed of both sides was extremely fast. Time and time again, they collided with each other. Time and time again, they attacked, blocked, and counterattacked. Everything was completed in an instant. Hundreds of changes occurred in the blink of an eye. It was almost beyond their control. Qin Shanhe and Bawang had retreated far, far away. They were so far away that they could barely see two small dots. Speaking of which, this distance was not very safe. Once Chu Mu was defeated, that evil swordsman of the God Condensation realm could immediately catch up and kill them. All their hopes were pinned on Chu Mu. Qin Shanhe was extremely shocked that Chu Mu could fight against an evil swordsman in the God Condensation realm. Burning blood transformation. I must cultivate the burning blood transformation, Qin Shanhe said to himself as he clenched his fists. If he could also cultivate the burning blood transformation, he might be able to help Chu Mu a bit and fight against that evil swordsman. He wouldn't be like he was now, where he could only hide far away and helplessly wait for the result. Of course, he could also take this opportunity to leave and return to the Sky Peak Valley. However, he and Chu Mu were members of the same battle team. They were comrades who had gone through life and death together. More importantly, He had a thought in his heart that Chu Mu could win. Chu Mu's current situation was not very good. As the burning blood transformation continued, his essence blood was constantly being consumed. Although it provided him with an unending amount of tyrannical power, it also caused him to feel that his body was in a deficit. The difference between the God condensation realm and the origin realm is still too obvious. With my strength, even if I use the burning blood transformation, it will only be a draw. It will be difficult for me to win unless I can cultivate the burning blood transformation to the Deshang level. Chu Mu thought to himself as he madly attacked. Dual sword art. I can still use the dual sword art. My strength will increase by another 50%. However, even if it increases by 50%, it will still be difficult to kill this evil swordsman unless my dual sword art reaches perfection. Once his dual sword art reached perfection, his strength would increase by 1-fold. Involuntarily, Chu Mu's eyes lit up as he thought of a way to kill this evil swordsman in the God condensation realm. His attack style immediately changed. It changed from a torrential storm of attacks to a light breeze like guerrilla warfare. The change in his battle style caused the evil swordsman to be slightly startled. He immediately reacted and changed from his previous defensive stance to an incomparably fierce attack. Evil, dark, bloodthirsty, and all kinds of auras mixed within his sharp aura, wreaking havoc everywhere. Chu Mu used the flying swan illusionary void step. His right hand held his sword as he constantly blocked and counterattacked. His left hand was secretly forming hand seals, setting up seals. Chu Mu suddenly had an idea. He placed a seal on his left hand so that it wouldn't attract the evil swordsman's attention. Sealing hand seals were normally formed with both hands. Using one hand to receive the seal was something Chu Mu had suddenly thought of. If he could succeed, it would mean that he would have a completely new breakthrough in the Tao of sealing. Chu Mu didn't know whether or not he would succeed. But right now, he could only give it a try. First, he placed down a defensive seal. Using one hand to receive the seal wasn't as efficient as using two hands. But Chu Mu found that as he divided his attention, he actually made some progress. While blocking the evil swordsman's attacks, he also placed a seal on his palm. Fortunately, Chu Mu only needed to place a seal the size of his palm. It wasn't very difficult. A series of sealing talismans condensed in his palm and dispersed, gradually forming a defensive seal. Although he could divide his attention, Chu Mu was still in a sorry state under the attacks of the corrupt swordsman. His robes were torn in many places, but he wasn't injured. Once the defensive seal was finished, it still wasn't enough. Chu Mu continued forming hand seals with one hand, forming a counterattack seal. The evil swordsman's sure-kill sword slashed down. Chu Mu used his sword to block it. When they collided, a terrifying shockwave immediately injured Chu Mu. He coughed up a mouthful of blood and flew back uncontrollably. His left hand stopped forming hand seals. With a thought, borrowing that shockwave, Chu Mu flew back even further. When he landed several hundred meters away, he continued forming hand seals with his left hand behind his back. The evil swordsman wasn't injured at all. His eyes shone with an evil light as he calmly walked over to Chu Mu. He stared at Chu Mu's eyes as if he was looking at a delicious prey. In the evil swordsman's heart, Chu Mu was already his prey. Next, he would suck all of Chu Mu's blood. The blood of a true genius would definitely be delicious. Thinking of that, the evil swordsman became impatient. His footsteps quickened, and in a flash, he arrived in front of Chu Mu. His dark red sword quickly stabbed out. It wasn't to kill Chu Mu, but rather to leave a wound on Chu Mu's body. That way, he would be able to absorb his blood and watch his opponent howl in pain. Furthermore, absorbing the blood of the prey while they were still alive would make the blood even more delicious. A cold light flashed in Chu Mu's eyes. He pushed out his left hand, blocking the evil swordsman's sword. The evil swordsman sneered. His defensive seal and counterattack seal immediately fused together. Not only did it block the evil swordsman's sword, but it also caused a powerful counterattack that knocked the evil swordsman's sword aside. A powerful force instantly passed through the sword and into his palm, causing the evil swordsman's expression to change. He hastily circulated his sword chi to resist, forming hand seals with one hand, as well as a seal that had been hastily set up, had just barely reached the level of a beginner grandmaster. It wasn't enough to kill or even injure this evil swordsman, but it was enough to stall him for 3 breaths. His full strength erupted, and a sword appeared in his left hand. With 2 swords in hand, his strength increased. His body shot forward like lightning, and the sword in his left hand silently stabbed out. The peak of the advanced realm instantly pierced through the evil swordsman's protective astral sword. At this time, the evil swordsman was using half of his strength to resist the counterattack seal. His body swayed and his footsteps became chaotic. He used an inconceivable method to dodge Chu Mu's sword. But then he felt a sharp pain in his chest. His heart had been pierced. So the sword in his left hand was just a superficial attack, while the sword in his right hand was the true killing blow. It was like 2 swordsmen working together to the peak. This was completely out of the evil swordsman's expectations. The powerful 6th Revolution sword intent and 6th Revolution metal profound poured into his heart, crushing it. "If I die, you'll die too," shouted the evil swordsman. Chu Mu was startled. He hastily let go of his right hand and retreated. In an instant, Chu Mu retreated a few hundred meters. The sword in his left hand slashed at the ground, creating a hole. He hurriedly crawled into it. At the same time, an extremely terrifying explosion rang out. An incomparably terrifying energy exploded outwards. Blood surged and the sharpness was limitless. It charged into the sky and swept through the earth. It was like a blood-colored wave that was hundreds of meters tall. It was incomparably dense, and its sharpness was unstoppable. The ground was shattered, and a layer of it was forcibly scraped off. It was like the end of the world had arrived. Qin Shanha's expression changed. Even from tens of thousands of meters away, he could still sense that heaven-destroying, earth-shattering power. The shockwaves caused him to take a few steps back. Then what about Chu Mu, who was in the range of the explosion? Chapter 7:15. The terrifying explosion lasted for dozens of breaths. A blood-red mushroom cloud nearly 100 meters in diameter rose into the sky, accompanied by gusts of wind and terrifying roars. In the end, the dust settled. Qin Shanha's face was pale as he looked at the piece of land. Under the self-destruction of the evil path swordsman, 500 meters of land was blown away by the terrifying power, forming a huge crater. It was like a basin, and the deepest part was over 20 meters deep. Outside the 500-meter radius, a layer of the dark brown soil was also scraped off, forming a mirror-like surface. It was incomparably smooth, and it covered another several thousand meters. It was hard to imagine that the self-destruction of an evil path swordsman would be so powerful. "Captain, Captain!" Qin Shanha hurriedly ran over, shouting loudly. Bawang also ran over. Bawang was still alive and safe, which meant that Chu Mu was also not dead. However, he couldn't see where Chu Mu was. Qin Shanha jumped into the basin to search, but he couldn't find him. Bawang had a connection with Chu Mu, so he directly rushed to the edge of the basin. His sharp claws tore open the hard, steel-like ground and dug out Chu Mu. Chu Mu was indeed alive, but he was unconscious. His robes were tattered, and there were many wounds on his body. His hair was white, and his originally glossy black hair had become dry as if it had lost its vitality. It was like weeds that had lost a large amount of nutrient. His skin was also full of wrinkles. He looked like he had aged a few decades, like an old man past his prime. From the surface, it could be seen how terrifying the side effects of using the burning blood transformation were on Chu Mu. Even his internal organs had lost their vitality due to the burning of large amounts of essence blood. He was in a critical state. Qin Shanhe hurriedly called out, but Chu Mu had already fallen unconscious and didn't respond. However, the wrinkles on his skin were slowly disappearing, gradually becoming fuller. His hair also gradually regained its tough luster. A wave of vitality quietly spread out from within his body. Golden vein blood yang pill. Qin Shanhe suddenly understood. He quickly glanced at Chu Mu's temporary battle record sword token, which was held tightly in Chu Mu's right hand. Bawang, get out of here quickly, Qin Shanhe said as he placed Chu Mu on Bawang's back. The explosion just now was too big. It would definitely cause a huge commotion. It wouldn't be long before many powerful swordsmen and outsiders came here. They had to leave, or it would be dangerous. Bawang's intelligence wasn't low, so he naturally understood. He nodded, and with a whoosh, only an afterimage was left behind. Qin Shanhe did not dare to fall behind. He quickly caught up and left. A divine condensation realm swordsman definitely had an extraordinary amount of savings. However, that kind of self-destruction was really too powerful. He didn't even know if the spatial ring could withstand it. Even if it could withstand it and come out unscathed, it would still be blown away by this kind of explosion, flying to who knew where. His life was more important. Leaving this place was the way to go. About 15 minutes later, numerous figures flew over. There were humans and outsiders. When they saw this huge basin and the smooth surface of several thousand meters, their expressions changed. Even the sword of Gojoseon would have a chance of dying if faced with this kind of power. After a quick inspection, they didn't find anything special. Adding on the fact that there were different races present, an intense battle immediately broke out. The goal was to kill each other. The golden vein blood yang pill was worthy of being a sacred item for recovering essence blood. After 2 hours, Chu Mu's essence blood had completely recovered. If it had been the blood yang pill, 2 hours wouldn't have been enough. It would have taken at least 6 to 8 hours to recover. After recovering his essence blood, Chu Mu's skin, hair, and other things also returned to normal. Even the injuries caused by the evil swordsman's self-destruction had mostly healed. Although the golden vein blood yang pill wasn't a healing pill, it also stimulated the body's functions at the same time as it recovered essence blood. It increased the speed of recovery, causing most of his injuries to recover. There was also a portion of his injuries that Chu Mu had consumed. They were also rapidly recovering. The temporary battle record sword medallion was once again hung on his waist. There were 1,580 battle points inside. Chu Mu felt that it was a pity, because the deaths of those evil swordsmen weren't counted as Chu Mu's fault. In the end, the battle record sword medallion was an inanimate object. It didn't have any intelligence, so it couldn't make accurate judgments. Although that spirit condensation realm evil swordsman's heart had been crushed by Chu Mu and his death had been inevitable, at that time, he had self-destructed before dying. It wasn't within the battle record sword medallion's calculations. Otherwise, killing a spirit condensation realm evil swordsman would have given him quite a bit of battle points. Although he didn't get any benefits, and even got himself injured, he had to consume a precious golden vein blood yang pill. But in the end, that was to save his, Qin Shanhe's, and Bawang's lives. If he didn't do that, he would have been killed by that spirit condensation realm evil swordsman. What kind of benefits could be compared to his own and his companions' lives? In addition, using the burning blood transformation to fight with the spirit condensation realm evil swordsman had also allowed Chu Mu to understand what level he had reached when he used his full strength. He had also comprehended the seal technique, and could use it in battle to create a surprise attack. This kind of benefit was the real benefit. Now Chu Mu, Qin Shanhe, and Bawang were on their way back to Sky Peak Valley. Previously, because of his injuries, Chu Mu could only ride on Bawang's back. Now that his injuries had healed, he put Bawang into the battle beast space and used his full strength with Qin Shanhe. This Chu Mu and Qin Shanhe are really lucky. They're actually still alive. Yeah, Chumu entered the Crimson Wasteland and there was no news of him for a few months. I thought he was dead. I didn't expect him to still be alive. He's really lucky. This Qin Shanha has been in the Crimson Wasteland for more than half a month. It's really surprising that he's still alive. When Chumu and Qin Shanha returned to Sky Peak Valley, they immediately heard all kinds of discussions. After all, many unrated battle teams didn't dare to stay in the Crimson Wasteland for too long. At most, they would return in 2 or 3 days. Those that didn't return in more than 10 days were basically dead. Even those members of first-rate battle teams didn't dare to stay in the Crimson Wasteland for a few months. They didn't know the strength of Chumu and Qin Shanha. They only felt that no matter how strong they were, they couldn't be that strong. Therefore, they judged it with common sense. Chumu and Qin Shanha ignored all kinds of discussions. They quickly left Sky Peak Valley and returned to the elite disciple area. They headed straight for Stop War Tower. The elder of Stop War Tower was still the same hunchbacked old man who looked like he had one foot in a coffin. To become an official battle team, you have to pay 1,000 battle points, the hunchbacked elder said slowly. Chumu took down the temporary battle points sword token and handed it to the hunchbacked elder. 1580 battle points, not bad. The murky eyes looked at Chumu. In an instant, the 2 willpower stars in Chumu's spiritual world flickered crazily. Do you want to change the name of the battle team? The hunchbacked elder retracted his gaze and asked. No need, Chumu said. The Zhen Tian battle team has become an official battle team. It's a third-rate battle team. In the future, if you want to increase the rank of the battle team, you have to pay the corresponding battle points and complete the corresponding missions. The hunchbacked elder said as he recorded the information of the Zhen Tian battle team. Design the logo of your Zhen Tian battle team. Chumu had already thought of the logo. It was a sky with a crack in the middle. It was a crack that was torn open by a terrifying force. It looked very lifelike. Not long after, Chumu and Qin Shanha each received a battle points sword token. It was an official battle points sword token. On one side there were 2 ancient words, Zhen Tian, and on the other side there was the logo that Chumu had designed. It was a sky that was torn apart by a shock. Immediately after, the hunchbacked elder gave Chumu 8 battle points sword tokens. These were provided for free. There were a total of 10 battle points. If he needed more battle points in the future, he had to pay the corresponding battle points to obtain them. 1 battle point sword token required 10 battle points. However, Chumu did not plan to expand the Zhen Tian battle team. He only needed the true elites, the elites of the elite. A battle team, a small team, with 10 members. That was all. The battle points sword token was enough. The remaining 580 battle points were all transferred to the official battle points sword token. Qin Shanha's 300 battle points were also transferred over. You can customize the battle team's exclusive badge and clothes here, the hunchbacked elder said. How do we calculate it? Chumu asked. An ordinary badge is worth 10 battle points. An ordinary set of clothes is worth 30 battle points, the hunchbacked elder said as he threw a book over. Chumu flipped open the book and saw that the prices of badges and battle uniforms were listed on it. Badges and clothes were divided into different levels. The most ordinary ones were worth 10 battle points and 30 battle points. There were even better ones above that. Of course, one had to pay more battle points. For example, a black iron badge came with a defensive seal. It could be activated to block a 3rd transition level attack. It was worth 50 battle points. A green bronze badge came with a defensive seal. After it was activated, it could block a 4th transition level attack. It was worth 200 battle points. The higher grade was the silver grade badge, which also had a defensive seal. After it was activated, it could block a 5th class advancement level attack. It was worth 500 battle points. A gold badge came with a defensive seal. After it was activated, it could block a 6th transition level attack. It was worth 1,000 battle points. Similarly, the battle uniform was similarly divided into ranks like the badges. Black iron, bronze, silver, and gold had its own defensive seal, which could block an attack of the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th class professions. However, the price of the clothes was several times higher than the badges. For example, a black iron battle suit required 100 battle point. A green bronze battle suit required 400 battle point. A silver battle suit required 1,000 battle point. A gold battle suit required 3,000 battle point. In addition, the seals could be replaced or even increased. The price would depend on the situation. Chapter 7:16. The members of an average battle team would only be equipped with normal badges. They might not even have a battle uniform. However, some of the members of the Demon Slayer battle team who had died under Chu Mu's sword had better badges. However, the defensive seals within the badges needed to be activated by themselves. Chu Mu's sword was too fast, so they did not have the chance to activate it. At that time, Chu Mu would not have paid attention to their badges and destroyed their corpses. After thinking about it, Chu Mu decided to customize a dark iron rank badge. As for the battle uniform, he did not need it for the time being. The battle points still needed to be used in other areas. When customizing, battle points had to be paid first. Chu Mu's battle points on the battle achievement sword token immediately decreased by 50 points, leaving him with 530 points. Not long after, Chu Mu received a custom-made dark iron rank badge. On it was the symbol of the Zhen Tian battle team. The seal within the dark iron rank badge could only withstand a full blow from a 3rd transformation swordsman. It was useless against Chu Mu and Qin Shanhe. Chu Mu's main purpose was to research. In terms of defensive seals and counterattack seals, he had reached the level of a great grandmaster. If he could research them, he could definitely make a better battle team badge himself. For the next period of time, we will focus on increasing our strength. At the same time, we will see if there are any outstanding newcomers, Chu Mu said to Qin Shanhe. It had been almost a year since they had become elite disciples. During this period of time, there should be some official disciples who had become elite disciples. Perhaps there would be some outstanding geniuses among them. Qin Shanhe nodded and returned to his sword tower with the burning blood transformation, secret technique that Chu Mu had given him. After a few rounds of research, Chu Mu discovered that after the seal on the dark iron rank badge was activated once, it had to be replenished before it could be activated again. However, if the badge was destroyed, the seal would naturally be destroyed as well. After researching thoroughly, Chu Mu began to try to modify the seal within the badge and make adjustments. In terms of defensive seals, Chu Mu had reached the level of a great grandmaster. He could easily distinguish the seals within the badge and make adjustments bit by bit. Modifying a seal was sometimes more difficult than directly setting one up. After a few attempts, Chu Mu finally found a way. He successfully increased the level of the seal within the badge to the point where it could withstand the full power strike of a 4th transition swordsman. However, it was still not enough. He could continue to modify it. 2 days later, Chu Mu finally modified the seal in the badge to the point where it could withstand a full blow from a 6th class swordsman. Because of the limited materials and size of the badge, the level of the seal could not be increased, otherwise the badge would not be able to withstand it. 6th transformation. Chu Mu held the badge in his hand and his gaze became distant. After it was activated, it could withstand a full blow from a 6th class swordsman. In many situations it could save one's life, and could even turn defeat into victory. Even for himself, it was useful. However, Chu Mu still planned to try to set up a counterattack seal as well, and fuse it with the defensive seal. With the power of both defense and counterattack, the effect would be better. After 3 days of trying, Chu Mu finally succeeded in setting up a counterattack seal. It formed a fused seal. Not only could it withstand a full blow from a 6th-class swordsman, it could also counterattack with a force that the 6th-class swordsman had to pay attention to. Chu Mu immediately left the sword gauntlet and headed to the War Stop Tower to customize 9 ordinary badges. The materials of the badges were the same. The only difference in grade was the strength of the seals contained within. 9 ordinary badges were worth 90 battle points. Chu Mu still had 440 battle points left. In just one day, Chu Mu successfully set up a fusion of defensive and counterattack seals within the 9 ordinary badges. Such badges surpassed the so-called gold-grade badges made by the War Stop Tower, and their value was much higher. Without a doubt, Chu Mu saved a lot of battle points. After storing all the badges into the interspatial ring, Chu Mu got up and left the sword gauntlet for the stargazing platform. He had spent 5 consecutive days researching how to set up seals. Now that he was done, Chu Mu didn't plan on continuing to research seals. He needed to increase his strength, absolute strength. After being trapped in the stone tomb for 5 months, Chu Mu's spiritual consciousness had once again filled his spiritual world. He had reached the standard of condensing the 3rd intent star. Now, he only needed to refine his spiritual consciousness to the limit, and he would be able to condense the 3rd intent star. At that time, Chu Mu's spiritual consciousness would become even more tyrannical and terrifying. 440 battle points were enough for Chu Mu to cultivate on the stargazing platform for 44 days. However, he didn't need that many days. He entered the stargazing platform and drew in the power of the stars. The 3rd chapter of the Southern Dipper Mind Refining Scripture was the Heavenly Beam Star. It condensed the tyrannical spiritual consciousness into a beam and spread it 2,000 meters into the sky, a total of 3,000 meters from the ground. On the stargazing platform, the higher one's spiritual consciousness went, the purer and denser the power of the stars would be. The difference of 1,000 meters was double the difference. With such a huge difference, the power of the stars that Chu Mu could draw in at the same time was even denser. The speed of refining his spiritual consciousness also greatly increased, doubling the speed. During the day, Chu Mu practiced swordsmanship, mountain-quaking energy, and other techniques in the sword gauntlet. He practiced the control of power, the heavenly desolate sword origin, and studied the 7th hand seal of the 9 revolution heavenly shocking seal. At night, he drew in the power of the stars and refined his spiritual consciousness. Everything in the outside world seemed to have nothing to do with him. Qin Shanhe also didn't appear. He was wholeheartedly cultivating in seclusion. After seeing the battle between Chu Mu and the evil swordsman of the God Condensation Realm, Qin Shanhe had an unprecedented thirst for power. He originally thought that the strength of the 5th Revolution Sword Will and the 5th Revolution Profound Meaning of Earth was enough to fight side by side with Chu Mu. However, he now understood that it wasn't enough. It was still not enough. He still needed to be stronger. With this thought, his fighting spirit, which had been a little slack, gathered once again. It turned into a raging flame that burned even more vigorously than before. There was no end to being powerful. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, the 10th day. It was late at night. On the stargazing platform, the sky was filled with stars. They were like countless eyes that blinked. They were as bright as fireworks. They were so beautiful that they seemed to be within reach. It was so mesmerizing. Stretching out his hand and opening his 5 fingers, it was as if he could grasp the stars in the sky. Looking at the resplendent stars in the sky, Chu Mu retracted his deep gaze and slowly closed his eyes. His mental remembrance once again pervaded the air. 2,000 meters in the air, he guided the pure power of the stars into his mental world, filling it up. The pure and incomparably tyrannical power of the stars coexisted with the extremely pure spiritual consciousness. Under the control of Chu Mu's spiritual consciousness, the spiritual consciousness began to move. Like the gears of a machine, it began to slowly rotate. The speed went from slow to fast, gradually accelerating. It turned into a whirlpool that sucked in all the power of the stars and spiritual consciousness. At the center of it all was a glowing dot. The whirlpool shrank and condensed into a ball. Chu Mu used his tyrannical spiritual consciousness to squeeze and attack from all directions, causing the power of the stars and spiritual consciousness to mix and fuse together, compressing and condensing unceasingly. Boom, boom, boom. A terrible sound rang in the spiritual world. The barrier of the spiritual world endured the impact of the tyrannical power again and again. The cultivation of the Southern Dipper mind training scripture would increase the efficiency and speed of the refinement of one's mind. However, it was more difficult to condense a mind star. Every time it was condensed and compressed, the burden on one's spiritual world would be greater. However, the strength of Chu Mu's spiritual world barrier would continue to increase after condensing the spiritual consciousness into a spiritual star. Therefore, it could barely withstand the impact of the power brought about by condensing the spiritual consciousness. Time and time again, the strong compression, the impact, and the vibration. Chu Mu's spiritual world changed again. Condense. A violent roar, like the thunder from the ninth heaven, exploded the sky, and the spiritual world was in turmoil. The last condensation, the most tyrannical spiritual consciousness, was output without reservation. In an instant, the third spiritual consciousness was formed in the terrible sound of thunder. It was located next to the star of Tianxiang, flickering with faint starlight. At this point, Chu Mu had finished cultivating the third chapter of the Southern Dipper mind refining scripture and condensed the third spiritual consciousness star, Tianliang star. The three spiritual consciousness stars hung high in the sky of the spiritual world, flickering with a faint luster. They looked a little dim, but as long as Chu Mu thought about it, the three spiritual consciousness stars would explode with an unimaginable and terrifying spiritual consciousness. The spiritual world didn't expand, but it became more stable and could withstand a greater impact. Only 10 days had passed. In total, it had been 15 days since Chu Mu left the Crimson Wasteland. His overall strength had increased again. The condensation of the third spiritual consciousness star had increased the volume of Chu Mu's spiritual consciousness. At this point, if he spread out his spiritual consciousness, it could cover a range of 300 meters. If he condensed it into a beam, it could spread out to a range of 3,000 meters. This kind of distance was unheard of in the Origin realm. At this point, Chu Mu was sure that he could barely withstand the spiritual consciousness of an ordinary God condensation realm swordsman. The biggest advantage of a God condensation realm swordsman was their spiritual consciousness. The terrifying spiritual consciousness could crush any swordsman below the God condensation realm. If he could withstand the spiritual consciousness attack, the gap between him and a God condensation realm swordsman would shrink again. If I can condense the fourth thought star, such a mental intent would be able to completely withstand the mental attacks of normal divine condensation realm swordsmen and ignore them. A cold glint flashed through Chu Mu's eyes as he thought to himself. After the condensation of the third spiritual consciousness star, Chu Mu still had 340 battle points left. He planned to save these battle points and increase the time. He had to study the seventh spiritual consciousness of the Nine Revolution Heavenly Shocking Seal. He wanted to study it as soon as possible and refine the seventh spiritual consciousness and profound. He didn't know if the seventh spiritual consciousness was the end, but he was sure that once his sword consciousness and profound reached the seventh spiritual consciousness, his strength would increase by several folds and he would become even more powerful. Chapter 7:17. The life of an elite disciple was rather monotonous. It was nothing more than cultivation, increasing their strength, entering the Crimson Wasteland to hunt or be hunted, surviving, and becoming stronger. Strictly speaking, the Sky Edge Sword Palace was only one of the bases that nurtured the young swordsmen of the human race. Time passed slowly. Chu Mu added 8 hours every day to study the 7th handprint of the 9 Revolution Heavenly Heart Shocking Seal. Because he had condensed the 3rd star of consciousness, his calculation ability had greatly improved. His progress was very obvious. Finally, it had been a full year since Chu Mu became an elite disciple. In another half a month, it would be the annual New Talent Summit. This New Talent Summit was not considered official. There might not be any swordsman that could catch one's eye, but there might be 1 or 2 talented swordsmen. The Zhen Tian battle team was officially established. It was currently a third-rate battle team with only 2 members, the captain Chu Mu and the vice-captain Qin Shanhe. The Zhen Tian battle team needed members. However, they were only ordinary members. The Zhen Tian battle team did not need them. Chu Mu wanted true geniuses, the best of the best. Another half a month passed. The 7th handprint of the 9 Revolution Heavenly Heart Shocking Seal was almost complete. However, Chu Mu stopped and left the Sword Tower, heading towards the New Talent Summit. As the vice-captain of the Zhen Tian battle team, Qin Shanhe naturally went as well. When Chu Mu and Qin Shanhe arrived at the New Talent Summit, a large number of battle teams had already gathered. The members of the Demon Slayer battle team had already arrived. Their leader was still Jin Yanlei. Jin Yanlei had his hands behind his back. His gaze was cold and his brows were furrowed. There was a trace of irritation in his eyes. This year, the Demon Slayer battle team had suffered unimaginable losses. First, an official team was completely annihilated. Although an official team was not bad, it was nothing to the Demon Slayer battle team. After losing one, they could quickly form another one. However, they had lost another core team. In the entire Demon Slayer battle team, there were only 3 core teams. They were few in number and very rare. After all, a core team member's sword intent and profound had to be at the 5th revolution level. The captain's sword intent and profound had to be at the 6th revolution level. Even among the elite disciples, they were rare talent. Moreover, each of the true core teams were all veterans who had slaughtered countless experts of other races. They were all powerful and outstanding. It was not easy to pick. Losing a core team was a huge blow to the Demon Slayer squad. After investigating, they could not find out how the core team's annihilation. Who was the culprit? It was very simple. They didn't include Chu Mu in their investigation because they felt that with Chu Mu's strength, there was a limit to how strong he could be. How could he possibly kill a core team of the devil-slaying battle team? The investigation was still ongoing, and the recruitment of new members had to continue. Currently, the demon-slaying squad's overall strength had fallen to the bottom of the 3 great super squads. Most importantly, the annihilation of a core team had dealt a blow to the Demon Slayer battle team's reputation. These negative effects had to be eliminated. Demon Slayer battle team and God Slayer battle team also appeared. When they saw Jin Yanlei, their eyes twitched and a smile flashed in their eyes. The 3 super battle teams were competing with each other. The Demon Slayer battle team had suffered heavy losses and their overall strength had dropped. They were naturally happy. Although they were happy, they still had to show it. There were originally 12 first-rate battle teams. Now there were only 11 left. It was difficult to become a super battle team, but it was also not easy to become a first-rate battle team. The second-rate battle teams had also arrived. The third-rate battle teams had also arrived. Many of the unrated battle teams had also arrived. Some of them planned to participate in the new talent gathering, while others were purely here to watch the show. In the immemorial world, fortuitous encounters were everywhere. If a lucky person obtained a fortuitous encounter, their fate would often change. Some of the unrated battle team members, after obtaining a fortuitous encounter, had their talent and strength increased. Naturally, they were qualified to join a stronger battle team. At this time, Chu Mu and Qin Shanhe had also arrived. When the members of the 3 super battle teams saw Chu Mu and Qin Shanhe, they were first startled, then enraged. Especially Jin Yanlei. His eyes were extremely cold as he stared at Chu Mu. His gaze was sharp and forceful, as if he wanted to pierce through Chu Mu. The coldness in his gaze seemed to want to freeze Chu Mu's soul. However, Chu Mu had condensed his third thought star, and his mental remembrance was much stronger. Facing the golden flame thunder's gaze, he was completely able to remain calm. He indifferently glanced at the golden flame thunder and ignored it. Chu Mu's attitude immediately caused Jin Yanlei's heart to burn with anger. His eyes shot out a shocking cold light, like two sharp swords that shot towards Chu Mu. The gaze of a god condensation realm swordsman was also very frightening. It could hurt. Chu Mu's eyes also shot out a shocking sharp light, colliding with Jin Yanlei's gaze and shattering it. What a powerful mental power! Everyone was shocked. Jin Yanlei stared at Chu Mu without saying a word. He clenched his fists tightly. He didn't know why, but the current Chu Mu actually made him feel a trace of threat. If it was any other place, Jin Yanlei would definitely attack and kill Chu Mu. Unfortunately, this was the elite disciple area. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he didn't dare to attack. Emblem. Chu Mu and Qin Shanhe both have battle team emblems. They have formed an official battle team. Amazing! There hasn't been an official battle team for more than a year. Now, 2 battle teams have been formed consecutively. One is Xikongzhan's Stardust battle team, and the other is Chu Mu's battle team. I wonder what they are called? Chu Mu and Xikongzhan have arranged a battle. I wonder who will win in the end. I think it's impossible. Surpassing the 3 super battle teams? Dream on. Discussions rose one after another. Chu Mu and Qin Shanhe didn't pay any attention to them. Instead, they casually chose a spot to stand and waited for the rookie summit to begin. At this moment, Chu Mu's gaze seemed to be attracted and naturally looked to the front. Xikongzhan. He said these 3 words with his own voice. Sure enough, Xikongzhan slowly walked over with his team members. Xikongzhan, who was wearing a starry robe, had an extraordinary aura. His aura was many times stronger than before. Xikongzhan also saw Chu Mu. His gaze fell on the emblem on Chu Mu's chest. He smiled knowingly and lost a trace of his previous indifference. Your battle team has also been officially formed. The competition between us can be considered to have truly begun. Xikongzhan walked to Chu Mu's side and said slowly. Chu Mu nodded. Xikongzhan didn't say anything else. Instead, it was the few members beside him that were sizing up Chu Mu. They knew about the arranged battle between Xikongzhan and Chu Mu, but they didn't think much of it in their hearts. They felt that it was just a waste of time. How could Chu Mu be Xikongzhan's opponent? Whether it was in terms of individual strength or the development of a battle team, Chu Mu had concealed his aura. They couldn't see how strong Chu Mu was and could only make subjective guesses. Chu Mu also glanced at them. His sharp eyes immediately saw through their depth. In terms of the development of a battle team, Xikongzhan's Stardust battle team was indeed ahead of Chu Mu's Zhentian battle team. The current Stardust battle team, including Xikongzhan, had a total of 6 people. The first of the 13 champions, Fei Kong, who had always followed Xikongzhan, was also among them. Seeing Chu Mu, Fei Kang's gaze was somewhat complicated. Step by step, from disdain to respect, then to respect, and finally to look up. The change happened inadvertently, but it brought about shock time after time. Basically, all the members of the battle team had arrived. The new elite disciples had also basically all arrived. There weren't many of them, only 20 or so. It didn't seem like much. Of course, there were also a few unrated battle team members who thought that their strength had greatly increased. The battle had begun. Who can compete in the Rookie Summit? Chu Mu and the others were looking at each swordsman's performance, judging whether or not they had the qualifications to be recruited into their battle teams. Although the Zhentian battle team was only a third-rate battle team, and a newly established one at that, Chu Mu's requirements were very high. Ordinary elite disciples couldn't even enter his eyes. Seeking the best, preferring nothing to substandard. As he watched, Chu Mu couldn't help shaking his head. Zhang also didn't have any intentions of recruiting them. They were too weak. Although he didn't follow Chu Mu's strategy, he still required members with sufficient talent to have value in nurturing them. The 3 super battle teams also didn't enter their eyes. Only those third-rate and second-rate battle teams had the intention of recruiting members. "I'll also come and play." A rough voice came from not far away. Following that, a tall figure madly rushed over. The ground trembled slightly, and the sound was like the sound of a drum. Seeing that tall figure leap up, Chu Mu was slightly startled, thinking that his eyes were playing tricks on him. With a bang, the sword battle stage shook. That tall figure landed on it. He was over 2 meters tall, with bronze skin and bulging muscles. His clothes seemed to be about to burst. Power, power, and even more power. At first glance, this person brought about an extremely strong impact of power. It was shocking. Following that, the sword on his back was a huge door-like sword. It caused people's eyes to freeze, and they were filled with dread. Expert. From a sword, one could also tell the strength of a swordsman. For a door-like sword, an ordinary swordsman wouldn't be able to wield it. Those who could wield it were definitely people with extremely tyrannical physical strength. Such people usually had unique talents, and their strength wouldn't be weak. The eyes of the 3 super battle teams burned with passion. It was the same for the other battle teams. All of them stared at the figure on the sword battle stage as if it was a delicious cake. "Who will fight with me?" Zhang shouted. He pulled out his huge sword and stabbed it into the ground beside his feet. His might was unparalleled. Just this aura alone was enough to cause people to be afraid. Chu Mu was speechless. Zhang was a disciple of the Hongtian sect. Now that he appeared in the Sky Edge Sword Palace, what was going on? Could it be that he was here for an exchange? Running here to fight and dampen the spirit of the Sky Edge Sword Palace's elite disciples? Alright, no matter what the reason was, Zhang had appeared, and he was right here. As for what would happen next, Chu Mu didn't know. Chapter 7:18. His aura was like that of a primordial beast, tyrannical and full of power. Standing on the sword battle stage, Zhang looked down on everyone. For a moment, none of the new elite disciples dared to step onto the sword battle stage to battle Zhang. "If your performance is outstanding, you may become a member of my demon-slaying battle team," Jin Yanlei said, breaking the awkward silence. "I'll go." Immediately, a swordsman jumped onto the stage. This swordsman's strength was not bad among the swordsmen in the new summit. His sword intent and profound had both reached the second transition. "Come." The challenger pulled out his sword and pointed it at Zhang. His voice was like thunder, as if he was trying to boost his courage. Most people would be shocked when they first saw Zhang. They would be shocked by his powerful physique and the terrifying door-like great sword on his back. Thus, they would overlook everything else. Gradually, everyone calmed down. Thinking about it carefully, even if Zhang's physique and greatsword were so outstanding, it only meant that he had a unique talent in strength. It only meant that his potential in strength was extraordinary, and his future achievements would not be low. It did not mean that his current strength was tyrannical. Understanding this point, the challenger's heart gradually calmed down, and he adjusted his condition to the peak. Zhang smiled without saying anything. With a wave of his right hand, the door-like greatsword was unsheathed from his back. As he waved it, it created a whooshing sound. It was the sound of wind breaking that made people's hearts tremble. This move displayed Zhang's astonishing strength, causing the challenger to feel a sense of trepidation. "Take this." His aura exploded, and the challenger's figure flashed. Like a bird soaring through the sky, he landed on the ground and stabbed out with his sword. Zhang chuckled. Without any pretense, he held the door-like greatsword in his right hand and swept it out. A strong wind tore through the air, and whooshing sounds could be heard. He did not use any control of his strength, but simply used his tyrannical body to release a burst of strength. A thunderous explosion sounded out, and the challenger's face was filled with shock. His sword hadn't even reached Tu Gang when it was struck by Tu Gang's terrifying sword wind, and he couldn't dodge it at all. Like swatting a fly, he was swatted away. In midair, the challenger spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt as if all the bones in his body were about to fall apart. There was pain everywhere. Chu Mu looked at this scene speechlessly, while the others were surprised. It was hard to tell how strong Tu Gang was from this attack, because he did not use his sword intent or profound. He only used his physical strength to fight and defeated a second transition swordsman in an instant. At the same time, the crowd was also guessing whether Tu Gang had only cultivated his physical strength and neglected the cultivation of his sword origin. Not long after, there were more challengers, but without exception, they were all sent flying by Tu Gang's sword. Not a single one of them was able to make Tu Gang attack more than once. He didn't even have to use his true strength. He defeated more than a dozen challengers in a row. His method was simple and crude, and it shocked everyone. No one dared to challenge him anymore. Without a doubt, Tu Gang had become the strongest in the new talent summit. However, Chu Mu was somewhat speechless. With Tu Gang's sixth transition strength, he was not much weaker than him. Even if he wanted to dampen the spirit of the Sky Edge Sword Palace's elite disciples, he shouldn't have chosen these first and second transition swordsmen. After interacting for a few months, although they did not talk much, Chu Mu still had some understanding of Tu Gang. He was not the kind of person who would bully the weak. Forget it, with Tu Gang's strength, he would not be a threat to the Sky Edge Sword Palace. I wonder what your name is? Jean Yanlei's eyes lit up as he hurriedly asked. He guessed that this person's sword intent and profound had at least reached the fourth transition, or even the fifth. No matter what, he was a very good genius and was worth recruiting. Tu Gang. Tu Gang smiled. Sir Tu Gang, join our demon-slaying battle team. I can make the decision to give you the treatment of a core disciple and focus on nurturing you. Jean Yanlei said with a smile, sincerely inviting Tu Gang. The current demon-slaying battle team needed new blood, especially new blood with outstanding talent. Since the demon-slaying battle team was like this, the monster-slaying battle team and god-slaying battle team naturally invited Tu Gang as well, promising him all sorts of benefits as long as he was willing to join their battle teams. Tu Gang was definitely a genius. Moreover, with his physique and unparalleled strength, he was a rare and special genius. If such a genius was nurtured well, he would be able to rely on his own unique ability to hold his own. Compared to ordinary geniuses, this kind of special genius was much more popular. The three super battle teams continued to invite Tu Gang, promising him all sorts of benefits and competing continuously. However, Tu Gang's expression was indifferent, and he was not moved at all. Although those first-rate battle teams were tempted, they knew that they could not compare to the three super battle teams, so they endured and did not make a sound. It had to be said that this was a kind of tragedy, because if they competed with the three super battle teams, it would undoubtedly be the same as becoming their enemy. They would very likely be suppressed by the three super battle teams. Because of a genius, the entire battle team would be suppressed, and it would be difficult for them to develop. Such a price was too heavy. As a result, those powerful swordsmen were divided up by the three super battle teams, and those left behind were often leftovers. If a battle team wanted to develop, it would be extremely difficult. Join my Stardust battle team. I will give you everything you want, Sikong Zhan said. He was not afraid of the three super battle teams, because his goal was to surpass them. Moreover, the power behind him was terrifying, and he could ignore the threat of the three super battle teams. Many people were waiting for Chu Mu to speak. After all, Chu Mu had an agreement with Sikong Zhan, and he also had conflicts with the demon-slaying battle team. What made people disappointed was that Chu Mu did not speak, because he knew Tu Gang's identity. He was definitely not an ordinary disciple of the Hongtian sect. I heard that there is a battle team called the Zhen-Tian battle team. Tu Gang suddenly opened his mouth and said something that shocked everyone. Instantly, everyone's eyes focused on Chu Mu. Even Qin Shanhe was the same. Tu Gang stared at Chu Mu as if he did not know Chu Mu and said to Chu Mu, "You must be the captain of the Zhen-Tian battle team, right? I would like to apply to join the Zhen-Tian battle team." In an instant, Tu Gang's words caused a commotion. Chu Mu didn't immediately reply. Instead, he furrowed his brows. This scene was seen by everyone, and they immediately felt shocked. The 3 super battle teams had promised him all kinds of benefits, and Xikong Zhan had also said that he would give Tu Gang everything he wanted, and sincerely invited Tu Gang to join their battle team. However, Tu Gang ignored them and chose the Zhen-Tian battle team. The Zhen-Tian battle team did not invite him, nor did they promise him any benefits. If it was any other battle team, they would be overjoyed at this moment. However, the captain of the Zhen-Tian battle team, Chu Mu, actually frowned, as if he was unwilling. Crazy, the world had gone crazy. The 3 super battle teams' faces were extremely ugly, and they stared at Chu Mu fiercely. "I am an elite disciple of the Sky Sharp Sword Palace," Tu Gang said. "If I join the Zhen-Tian battle team, I will not need anything from the battle team. I will obtain all the cultivation needs by myself." Tu Gang's words caused a third round of shock. The 3 super battle teams had promised him all kinds of benefits, but they were all ignored by Tu Gang. Instead, he took the initiative to join the Zhen-Tian battle team, and even said that he did not need any benefits from the battle team, and that he would obtain all the cultivation needs by himself. Heavens, is this a dream? The swordsmen groaned in their hearts, and even Qin Shanhe stood there in a daze, as if his brain had been frozen. Everything that was happening in front of them had exceeded their imagination and expectations. "Your application has been approved." Chu Mu looked deeply at Tu Gang, nodded, and said, "Captain, new member Tu Gang reporting." Tu Gang jumped down the stage, and landed in front of Chu Mu, and said seriously. Regarding Chu Mu, he was only curious at first, but Chu Mu's strength made him admire him. Then, in the Tao of Sealing, Chu Mu's attainments shocked Tu Gang. As a true genius, it was hard for him to admire others, but Chu Mu really made him admire him. Therefore, Tu Gang came to the Sky Edge Sword Palace. Originally, Chu Mu didn't hold much hope that he would be able to recruit a member. However, the world was just so mysterious and unpredictable. Not only did he recruit a member, but it was also a powerful and talented member with astonishing fighting strength. The harvest was unexpectedly good. As for the others, Chu Mu did not think highly of them, and did not plan to recruit them. The Zhen-Tian battle team only needed a small team, and that was the Zhen-Tian team. Every member was an elite among elites, a genius among geniuses. Chu Mu did not dare to hope that he would be able to recruit several of them in a single new talent summit. With the attitude of a victor, Chu Mu left the new talent summit with Qin Shanhe and Tu Gang. A smile flashed across Xikong Zhan's face, while Jin Yanlei's eyes were almost spitting fire. Those were flames of anger, flames that came from the bottom of his heart. It was as if he wanted to burn Chu Mu to ashes. The members of the Monster Slayer battle team and the God Slayer battle team smiled bitterly. At the same time, they were furious. However, they were different from Jin Yanlei. Even if they were unhappy, they understood that the choice was made by Tu Gang himself. If they still wanted to find trouble with Chu Mu, it would show that they were too petty. The recruitment of a new member was equivalent to the Zhen-Tian battle team and the Demon Slayer battle team clashing once again, and winning completely. Qin Shanhe was very happy. He could not see through Tu Gang's strength, but he must be very strong. Joining the Zhen-Tian battle team would allow the Zhen-Tian battle team to grow stronger. Moreover, it was also a development for the Zhen Tian battle team, and its momentum was good. As for Chu Mu, he had some questions in his heart that he needed answers from Tu Gang. The three of them came to Chu Mu's sword tower together. Tu Gang took out 3 wine gourds that contained the 10,000 beasts' blood. Speak. Why did a disciple of the Hongtian sect come to the Sky Edge Sword Palace to be an elite disciple? Chu Mu asked. Qin Shanhe was stunned as he looked at Tu Gang. He did not expect Tu Gang to be a disciple of the Hongtian sect. Since he was a disciple of the Hongtian sect, why did he come to the Sky Edge Sword Palace? Did he betray them? Chapter 719. Tu Gang gave a reasonable explanation for becoming an elite disciple of Sky Edge Sword Palace. He did not betray Hongtian sect. The Sky Edge Sword Palace was different from other factions as it didn't have many rules and regulations. It welcomed swordsmen from the outside world to join. Be it the Great Sky Sect's disciples or the Tantai clan's disciples, they could all become disciples of the Sky Edge Sword Palace. And Tu Gang's goal was to fight alongside Chu Mu. Alright, no matter what, Tu Gang was already here, and he had become a member of Zhen Tian's battle team. Next, they went to War Stop Building to register and obtain the Battle Merit Sword token. Then, Chu Mu gave Tu Gang a battle emblem. Now, let's go to Crimson Wasteland and earn battle points. We must earn more this time. Chu Mu said. The 3 members of Zhen Tian's battle team entered Sky Edge Valley and went straight into Crimson Wasteland to hunt. Qin Shanhe had rank 5 strength, while Tu Gang had rank 6 peak stage strength. Chu Mu was even stronger than Tu Gang. With such a combination, Chu Mu also summoned Boang. The 3 people and 1 beast immediately created a killing wind in Crimson Wasteland. Everywhere they passed, there would be no life left. During the day, they mainly killed immemorial beasts. When they encountered variant humans, they also killed them. During the night, if blood devils appeared, they would also kill them. Every day, the 3 of them had great gains, and the Battle Merit Sword token's battle merit points were increasing continuously. Bawang's strength was also increasing as it devoured immemorial beasts' essences and variant humans' corpses, reaching rank 5. Time passed quickly. Zhen Tian's battle team went deep into Crimson Wasteland. The immemorial beasts and variant humans that appeared here were all stronger, at least rank 5 strength. Stronger strength meant more battle merit points. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, when there wasn't any danger, Chu Mu would take some time to study the 7th imprint of the 9-cycle Heavenly Heart Shocking imprint. He would also explain to Tu Gang and Qin Shanhe how to use the 9-cycle Heart imprint to combine with the cold and evil aura to increase the refining efficiency. A month passed, and the Zhen Tian battle team set off to return. Bawang's strength was at rank 5 peak stage. Chu Mu and the other 2's strength did not change, but they obtained a large number of battle points. Including the remaining battle achievement points, Chu Mu now had 1,364 battle achievement points on his battle achievement sword token. Qin Shanhe's battle achievement sword token had 682 battle achievement points. Tu Gang's battle achievement sword token didn't have as many battle achievement points as Chu Mu, but it wasn't any less than Qin Shanhe's. He also had over 600 battle achievement points. In addition, the 7th hand seal of the 9 Revolutions Heavenshock seal was finally completed. They rushed back to Sky Peak Valley without stopping. After returning to the elite disciple area, the 3 of them split up and went on their own. After Chu Mu returned to the Sword Tower to rest for a while, he left for the Myriad Evil Valley. The chilly baleful aura in the Myriad Evil Valley was still the same. The deeper one went, the denser it became. It was unknown how this Myriad Evil Valley was formed, but the chilly baleful aura was so dense. Every day, some swordsmen would enter to temper themselves and exhaust the chilly baleful aura, but the chilly baleful aura did not decrease. After successfully condensing the 3rd mental star, Chu Mu could enter the deeper parts of the Myriad Evil Valley. He continued to walk deeper, and when he was about to reach his limit, he stopped and stood in the middle of the dense, chilly, baleful aura. He allowed the chilly, baleful aura to enter his mental world and envelop his metal profound and sword intent. Chu Mu started to form hand seals with his hands. The seventh hand seal of the 9 revolutions Heavenshock seal was formed, and his mental cultivation method was also activated. The 3 mental stars in his mental world started to flicker with dazzling radiance. A tyrannical and pure mental intent was released and condensed into one. It controlled the chilly, baleful aura and the 9 revolutions Heavenshock seal to cooperate with each other, increasing the tempering efficiency. With an increase of more than 5 times, Chu Mu could feel the effects of tempering. 1364 battle points. Using 10 battle points every day, Chu Mu could stay in the Myriad Evil Valley for 136 days. With the current tempering efficiency of more than 5 times, it was enough for him to temper his sword intent and metal profound to the 7th revolution. 7th revolution, just thinking about it made Chu Mu extremely excited. Chu Mu was wholeheartedly cultivating, so Tu Gang and Qin Shanhe naturally did not fall behind. Tu Gang's sword intent and power profound had both reached the peak of the 6th revolution, which was basically his limit. It was impossible for him to reach the 7th revolution unless his soul became even more powerful. Therefore, Tu Gang also began to temper his 2nd profound. The 1st profound was power profound, and the 2nd profound was speed profound. Possessing great strength, coupled with extraordinary speed, the effect produced by the combination of the two was extremely shocking. Just think about it, a big guy with great power and terrifying speed would be an astonishing existence, an opponent that would make many people feel despair. Qin Shanhe temporarily stopped cultivating the burning blood transformation and focused on tempering his sword intent and profound. He was currently at the 5th revolution and his goal was the 6th revolution. The 6th revolution should also be his limit. After tempering for a few days, Qin Shanhe and Tu Gang both entered the Myriad Evil Valley. With their battle points, it was enough for them to stay in the Myriad Evil Valley for more than 60 days. If they used it well, it would be enough to increase their strength by quite a bit. The Myriad Evil Valley's cold and gloomy aura was endless, constantly erupting from the depths. Chu Mu's position was rather deep. At least, among the entire Sky Edge Sword Palace's elite disciples, only he could reach this place. Of course, if a Divine Condensation Realm swordsman wanted to, they could also reach this place, and even go deeper than Chu Mu. However, the Myriad Evil Valley was useless for Divine Condensation Realm swordsmen. Their powerful divine sense and mental world would prevent the cold and gloomy aura from entering. This was a natural defense. Time passed day by day. Chu Mu wholeheartedly tempered his sword intent. The 3 mind stars allowed his mental force to recover at an extremely fast speed. It was in a state where the consumption and recovery were balanced, and there was no need for rest. Under such tempering, his sword intent became purer and purer. It went from the early 6th revolution to the middle 6th revolution, and then it slowly increased, slowly approaching the late 6th revolution. After around 2 months, his sword intent finally reached the late 6th revolution, nearing the peak. After another 2 days, his sword intent reached the peak 6th revolution, and Chu Mu's attack power increased by a few %. This was undoubtedly a very obvious and terrifying increase. Next, I'll break through to the 7th revolution. Thinking to himself, Chu Mu withdrew his mental force and rested for a while. After 2 months of focused tempering, although the recovery of his mental force could not keep up with the consumption rate, his mind could not help but feel tired. Chu Mu emptied his mind, allowing the cold and gloomy aura to corrode his sword intent and metal profound. His mind seemed to have fallen into a deep slumber. Half a day later, Chu Mu woke up. He felt refreshed, his mind recovered, and his tiredness was gone. Forming hand seals with both hands again, and using his mental cultivation method, Chu Mu continued tempering his sword intent. Breaking through from the peak 6th revolution to the 7th revolution was not easy. Time passed quickly and 3 days passed. The progress was very small, but it still increased bit by bit, reaching the limit of the 6th revolution. After continuous refinement, Chu Mu knew that he was about to break through very soon. After another 2 days, the extreme 6th circle sword intent, which was wrapped in a cold, evil aura and a tyrannical spirit, suddenly vibrated. With a buzzing sound, an astonishing sharpness was born from the depths of the sword intent, cutting the spirit and the cold, evil aura into pieces. Chu Mu could only use his mental force to observe the transformation of the sword intent. The shocking sharpness spread out from the depths of the sword intent and attacked the sword intent. The sword intent seemed to have undergone some kind of change, as if it had turned from steel to refined steel. The sharpness on the edge of the sword intent was incomparably terrifying, cutting through everything. Nothing could not be broken. Chu Mu's soul could not help but feel a trace of coldness, which was brought about by the sharpness of the sword intent. The 7th revolution sword intent was even more terrifying than the 6th revolution sword intent. Even if it was just the beginning of the 7th revolution, this sharpness shocked even Chu Mu himself. Using his mental force to touch the sword intent, the pure mental force was directly cut apart by the sharpness of the sword intent. This sword intent, if used as an attack, Chu Mu could not help but gasp. Gradually calming down, Chu Mu began tempering the profound of metal. According to the tempering progress of the sword intent, he could definitely temper the profound of metal to the 7th revolution before he used up all his battle points. His mental force mixed with the cold and gloomy aura, and under his control, it enveloped the profound of metal. Over the past 2 months, the cold, baleful aura had been constantly corroding the profundity of metal, causing the profundity of metal to be tempered to a certain extent. Therefore, after a few days, the profundity of metal had naturally advanced from the early 6th revolution to the middle 6th revolution, and its speed was even faster than the sword intent. However, the following tempering was about the same as the progress of the sword intent. Chu Mu could not help but rejoice that he had temporarily sealed the other profound of metal. Otherwise, the traction formed by so many profound of metal would greatly delay the tempering of the profound of metal, and it would take more time and resources. Time flew by, and Chu Mu seemed to have forgotten everything in the outside world. He was completely immersed in the tempering of the profound of metal. The profound of metal reached the late 6th revolution, then the peak of the 6th revolution, and then the peak of the 6th revolution. Soon after, it reached the peak of the 6th revolution. At this time, only 50 days had passed, not even 60 days had passed. The peak of the 6th revolution, and the next step was to break through to the 7th revolution. 2 days later, a terrifying power appeared in the gold ultimacy. It was a sharp power. The sharpness of the gold ultimacy was different from the sharpness of the sword intent. However, they were both extremely sharp and could cut through everything. That sharp energy emerged from the metal Upanishad and engulfed the entire metal Upanishad. It compressed the metal Upanishad and made it even smaller. Its color became even more dazzling and dazzling. There seemed to be a sharpness at the edge of the profound of metal as well. The 7th revolution, the profound of metal, had reached the 7th revolution as he wished. The terrifying 7th revolution sword intent and the terrifying 7th revolution gold profound meaning. When the two of them were combined, how tyrannical would the power be? For a moment, Chu Mu could not imagine. Chapter 720. As he opened his eyes, 2 rays of golden light shot out from his eyes, piercing through the dense baleful qi and leaving behind 2 10-meter-long trails. Only after 10 breaths of time did they dissipate. 7th revolution sword intent, 7th revolution metal profound, displayed an unparalleled sharpness that was unstoppable. Even the void seemed to be pierced through. Powerful, an extremely powerful feeling. However, Even Chu Mu himself was unable to determine just how powerful he was now. Facing an ordinary God Condensation Realm swordsman, without using the Burning Blood transformation, he might be able to contend against them. Using the power of the Origin Realm to contend against an ordinary God Condensation Realm swordsman, even if it was only an ordinary God Condensation Realm swordsman, would be extremely shocking. This was because there was a huge gap between the Origin Realm and the God Condensation Realm, an insurmountable gap. My sword intent and metal profound have both just reached the 7th revolution, but if I want to continue refining them, I will need to research the 8th seal of the 9 revolution heavenly shocking seal, or use more battle points to continue refining them in the 1000 Evil Valley. The golden light in Chu Mu's eyes disappeared, revealing a pair of clear eyes, as if the baleful chi could not obstruct them. Checking the battle record sword token, there were not many battle points left, only 64. This meant that Chu Mu had stayed here for a total of 130 days. The remaining battle points were only enough for him to stay in the 1000 Evil Valley for 6 days. 6 days would not have much of a tempering effect on his sword intent and profound meaning that had reached the 7th revolution. Chu Mu prepared to leave the 1000 Evil Valley, but after taking 2 steps, he stopped. After thinking for a while, he turned around and walked deeper into the 1000 Evil Valley. Chu Mu's idea was very simple. Since his sword intent and profound had both reached the 7th revolution, his strength had increased by several fold. He could definitely go deeper into the 1000 Evil Valley. Since his battle points had already been deducted for today, it would not take much time to go deeper. Chu Mu was still very curious about the 1000 Evil Valley. The baleful chi here could no longer bring any pressure to Chu Mu. Stepping forward, Chu Mu rapidly advanced, heading deeper into the 1000 Evil Valley. As they continued forward, the cold and gloomy evil chi became denser and denser. Chu Mu even suspected that the cold and gloomy evil chi in the depths of the myriad evil valley would eventually take on a liquid or even a solid state. While walking, the extremely dense murderous aura washed over Chu Mu's body, continuously invading his spirit world. It wrapped around the sword intent and the metal profound, corroding and quenching, increasing the efficiency. Chu Mu didn't know how long he had been walking in the depth. He only felt that his spiritual world was filled to the point that it almost solidified. There was a feeling of swelling, as if he had eaten too much. It was uncomfortable. I'm almost at my limit, Chu Mu thought to himself. The cold, baleful chi around him had already reached the limit of being a gas. Occasionally, a few strands of cold, baleful chi would appear. The liquid cold fiendish aura didn't invade Chu Mu's mental world because Chu Mu's mental world was already filled with dense cold fiendish aura. When the cold fiendish aura swept past his body, Chu Mu immediately felt his body tremble. His blood almost solidified and his body almost froze. Let's take a few more steps forward and see, Chu Mu thought to himself. He calmed his mind and concentrated. Circulating the sword energy, he once again took a step forward, walking in step by step. After approximately 30 steps, he encountered more and more gloomy fiendish air current. Basically, the ratio of the gloomy fiendish air currents reached 70 to 30%. The terrifying gloomy fiendish air currents caused Chu Mu to be unable to go any further. Even his protective sword aura was torn apart and his clothes became tattered. Just as he was about to turn around and go back, he suddenly felt something hard hit his body. Chu Mu reacted quickly. He stretched out his hand and immediately grabbed the hard object that hit his body. His eyes were filled with 2 layers of golden light. The sharp golden light pierced through the cold, baleful chi and landed on the object in his hand. It was a gray crystal the size of a soybean. It emitted a shocking wave of cold, baleful chi. This is the crystallization of cold, baleful chi. Chu Mu's pupils shrank as he exclaimed. However, there was no one else in this place except for him. Therefore, no one knew the shock in Chu Mu's heart. Energy could be divided into three states: gaseous, liquid, and solid. The gaseous state was the initial state, and also the state in which the energy was the thinnest. Once the energy reached the limit, it would evolve into a liquid state. For example, the sword chi cultivated by a swordsman would gradually purify and condense into sword energy at the origin realm. Sword chi was in the gaseous state, while sword energy was in the liquid state. The energy in the liquid state was many times purer than the gaseous state in terms of quantity and purity. The solid state was when the liquid state reached the limit. It was further purified and condensed into a solid state. The energy contained in the solid state was many times more than the liquid state. The soybean-sized cold baleful chi crystal that Chu Mu had accidentally obtained was the product of cold baleful chi evolving from the gaseous state to the liquid state and then to the solid state. The cold baleful chi could not be brought out of the Thousand Evil Valley. Once it left the valley, it would automatically dissipate. No one knew why. Then, could the cold baleful chi crystal be brought out of the Thousand Evil Valley? If it was possible, thinking of this, Chu Mu felt a little excited. Golden light filled his eyes. The golden light that could penetrate all things instantly broke through the cold baleful chi and forced it out. However, the cold baleful chi here was too dense. Even if Chu Mu tried his best, he could only see 10 meters in front of him. His body did not move, and even his breathing became long, as if he had disappeared. Suddenly, Chu Mu stretched out his hand. His forefinger and middle finger clamped a small, hard object. It was another soybean-sized cold baleful chi crystal. Following the same pattern, Chu Mu stayed here, constantly searching for cold baleful chi crystals. Once he found one, he would immediately collect it. However, there was not enough liquid yin chi in this place, let alone solid yin chi crystals. Those soybean-sized yin chi crystals were most likely broken yin chi crystals that had been swept out by the cold yin chi in the deeper parts of the Thousand Evil Valley where the liquid yin chi and solid yin chi intersected. After staying here for 2 hours, he had reached his limit. If he continued to stay here, it would only cause damage to his spiritual world. Chu Mu could only take a few steps back and turn around to leave. His harvest was not very big. He only obtained 13 soybean-sized cold baleful chi crystals. After leaving the range of the cold baleful chi, Chu Mu took out a new robe and put it on. He thought to himself that he should find a suitable robe, so that he would not have to change it every time his robe was broken. Moreover, the robe had a considerable amount of defensive power, which was equivalent to an extra layer of protection. Previously, he had obtained the golden blood robe from the burning blood sword of Gojoseon. However, it was a high emperor-level robe. Only those who had reached the god condensation realm could wear it. Otherwise, they would not be able to bear it. This was the limitation of the robe. In the origin realm, no matter how strong they were, they could only wear king-level robes. However, robes were even rarer than armor. This was because it was extremely difficult to make. It could not be forged at all. Only god adjudicators with special professions could make them. Therefore, the price of robes was extremely high. Those who could afford to wear robes were all extremely wealthy and powerful. After leaving the Thousand Evil Valley, Chu Mu took out the battle record sword token and sent a message to Tu Gang and Qin Shanha. There was a huge difference between the battle record sword token and the temporary battle record sword token. One of the differences was that the battle record sword token could send messages to each other within a certain range. This range was 10 miles. In the past, the demon-slaying battle team that had died under Chu Mu's sword were basically instantly killed by Chu Mu. Even if they were not instantly killed, they were under the pressure of Chu Mu. They could not afford to be distracted, let alone use the battle record sword token to send messages. Moreover, 10 miles was nothing in the Crimson Wasteland. It was very likely that they would not be able to find other battle team members within 100 miles. After receiving Chu Mu's battle record sword token, Tu Gang and Qin Shanhe immediately rushed to Chu Mu's sword tower. After more than 60 days of tempering in the Thousand Evil Valley, coupled with their respective 9 revolving heart seals and the method taught by Chu Mu, the tempering efficiency had greatly increased. Tu Gang's sword intent and strength ultimacy had both reached the peak of the 6th revolution, the true limit. His speed ultimacy had also reached the 3rd revolution, which was very rare. Qin Shanhe's sword intent and ultimacy were still at the 5th revolution. However, there was an obvious improvement from the early 5th revolution to the middle 5th revolution. His attack power had also increased. Currently, our Zhen Tian battle team only has 3 people. We still need 7 more. Chu Mu glanced at Tu Gang and Qin Shanhe and said, "Next, our mission, other than increasing our own strength, is to try our best to find suitable members to develop the Zhen Tian battle team. Captain wants to create an elite battle team. I have a candidate in mind, but this guy is very arrogant," Tu Gang said after a slight hesitation. "Who?" Chu Mu revealed a trace of curiosity. Qin Shanhe also stared at Tu Gang. "This guy is Tantai Liuguang, the number 1 in the inner courtyard of the Tantai clan under the god condensation realm. He is very cold and arrogant. He doesn't like to talk and is my sworn enemy," Tu Gang said. He seemed to have thought of something and his tone was a little annoyed. "Then who is stronger between you and Tantai Liuguang?" Qin Shanhe asked. "Previously, his strength was indeed slightly stronger than mine. But now I am definitely stronger than him." Tu Gang immediately said, "Tantai Liuguang comprehended the light ultimacy. His sword speed is very fast, just like the Aurora. If he is willing to join the Zhen Tian battle team, I will welcome him." Chu Mu smiled and said, "Arrogance was the privilege of a powerful swordsman. Arrogance without strength was an empty arrogance. Arrogance with strength was a kind of imposing manner." Chu Mu wasn't afraid of Tantai Liuguang being arrogant. He was only afraid that Tantai Liuguang didn't have strength. "Alright, I will go and invite him now," Tu Gang said and immediately stood up to leave. He had 2 identities. He was an elite disciple of the Sky Edge Sword Palace and a disciple of the Hongtian sect. If he wanted to contact Tantai Liuguang, he had plenty of means. Tantai Liuguang is the number 1 in the Tantai clan under the god condensation realm. He is your old rival. Your status in the Hongtian sect shouldn't be low, right? Chu Mu said secretly. However, Tu Gang didn't mention his identity, and Chu Mu didn't have the intention to ask. In short, as long as it wasn't disadvantageous to the Zhen Tian battle team, he didn't care about his identity. Around 1 hour later, Tu Gang returned to the sword tower. "I have already informed him. Within 3 days this guy will definitely come," Tu Gang said.